exist at the same time, and that the events in one affect what happens in other locations. For proof, just look at Phone Guy in FNAF 3.
Welcome to your new career as a performer/entertainer for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Right now, we have two specially designed suits that double as both animatronic and suit. After learning of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures, the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees.
This not only tells us that the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza had two golden suits, but also that the first Freddy's was open at the same time as the FNAF 4 Freddy's. The spring lock failure in the FNAF 4 location prompted the yellow suits to be retired in the FNAF 1 location. In short, a lot of these events overlap. Restaurants often stay open for years beyond what we see in the games, and everything weaves together in a way that's much more complicated than simply saying, this restaurant opened, kids died, it closed. The next one opened, kids died again, it closed. Games, and in all honesty, I suppose you could simplify it to that level, but we're not going to! I am holding myself to a higher standard. A slightly higher standard, but a higher standard nonetheless. So with those three logical rules in place, let's get analyzing. To begin, we have to identify who William's first victim was. Now, I've covered FNAF a lot, but in all my theories, one thing has remained consistent since FNAF 2, that the puppet was first. Henry's daughter. She is the character who gives life to all the other animatronics, so it would just make sense for her to be victim numero uno. But outside of that, it's always been just an assumption. And now that we've seen the event actually take place in the games, I think I've been wrong about it this entire time. Think about it. We have proof that William kills Henry's daughter in FNAF 6, but as I talked about in a previous theory, we see that later that night, Afton goes to a place called Junior's where he's turned away at the door. Now, why would Scott show us this? FNAF 6 was all about tying up loose ends. He's not just gonna throw in a random bar to establish that the Mustard Man is an alcoholic or anything. He's doing it to establish a timeline. The only time we hear of anyone being turned away from any building for any reason in this series is in FNAF 2.
From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employees.
And the name Juniors makes sense in Scott's classic way of giving us clues that are meant to clarify things, but really just end up confusing all of us. Remember, FNAF 2's location is the Grand Reopening, a second Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria location, a junior location, if you will. And lastly, to further solidify the puppet coming later in the timeline, remember why Freddy's closed in the first place. It wasn't due to murders or animatronics going haywire. According to the FNAF 1 newspapers, people just got weirded out by a place where kids disappeared. Quote, after a long struggle to stay in business after the tragedy that took place there many years ago, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has announced that it'll close by year's end, end quote. This all means that the missing children's incident where 5 kids go missing at a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza must be the first event of the timeline. William Afton uses the Spring Bonnie suit to lure 5 kids to the back, employees-only safe rooms that we hear about in FNAF 3, hiding their dead bodies in the animatronic suits. We can even figure out the order of who was killed when based on clues hidden in Ultimate Custom Night. We know with 100% certainty that Chica was first based on one of her death lines.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
That's about as explicit as you get with these games. From a storytelling standpoint, I hate that Chica's first because it really should have been Golden Freddy, so he could be the first spirit killed and the final spirit to haunt Afton in Custom Night, but whatever. Chica, aka Susie, is death number 1. She's lured away by Afton, telling her that her dog died. We see it in FNAF 6's Fruity Maze. We also read about it in the 4th closet. Quote, beside them was a little girl with blonde curls. I heard Daddy say he was hit by a car, but I knew it wasn't true. Bonnie told me it wasn't true. He said he found my puppy. And did he take you to your puppy? He took me, but I don't remember. My name's Susie. We even hear about it in the Chica anime cutscenes from Custom Night.
I told him that someone ran over his dog in front of my house.
Jeez, Scott, I know we were all looking for answers, but man, you beat that one over the head, didn't ya? Not that I'm complaining, but that one was a bit overly obvious, and then all the other ones are just so damn obscure. Just gotta find a better balance here, man. From there, we know that 4 other kids get taken and stuffed into suits. We know their names based on the gravestones at the end of FNAF 6. Gabriel, Fritz, Jeremy, and Grass. Hey, who are we to judge their kids? Probably some celebrities, kid. Oh, you must meet my children. This is Apple, audio science, and grass. All joking aside, though, loyal purists will remember this last parade was giving me a lot of trouble during a past theory. You see, this book, the FNAF Survival Logbook, holds a ton of reveals about the franchise, but they're all hidden in code. Some I was able to deduce, some left me stumped. But a few hours after releasing my video covering the book, the mystery was solved by the brilliant deduction of game theorist subreddit user DPowerful1. DPowerful1 used the numbers that I had found, 2, 39, 15, 7, 2, 10, 11, 8, 11, and put them not into an alphabet grid for ciphers like I'd been doing, and like the book was clearly hinting towards, but instead put them into the word search, of all places. Using the numbers as coordinates in the word search, you can spell the name Cassidy, a name that must belong to Golden Freddy based on the repeated use of Golden Freddy's signature line of "It's me" throughout the book, the gravestone imagery which lines up with the 5th mystery gravestone at the end of FNAF 6, and a mention of Cassidy in the final FNAF novel, The Fourth Closet. And that would be more than enough proof, but it's not all. In the novel, Cassidy is described as a girl with black hair, and what you see in the logbook, the puppet giving cake to a little girl with black hair. The only human child in the logbook, no less. And it's happening on a page talking about your happiest day. A direct reference to the happiest day minigame from FNAF 3, where the puppet gives cake to Golden Freddy in an effort to release its soul. You can even hear a girlish laugh every time Golden Freddy is summoned way back in FNAF 1. Literally everything about this reveal lines up. Everything, of course, except for the pronoun of he being used to talk about the one you should not have killed throughout Custom Night, which, as we established last episode, is referring to Golden Freddy. But consider this, Golden Freddy is a male character. He's Freddy Fazbear, he's Fredbear, regardless of the spirit that possesses it. So the gender confusion works here. Scott even used that to his advantage in the casting call, where he was specifically looking for auditions where, quote, the gender should not be immediately clear. It should work as either a young boy or a young girl. FNAF, teaching kids that gender is fluid, but only if you spend 4 years picking apart its obscure lore. Yeah, by the way, FNAF is 4 years old this August. It's crazy, right? Wow. The last thing to say about Golden Freddy is proving that he gets possessed here, at the first Freddy Fazbear Pizza location, rather than in FNAF 4 like most of us have assumed in the past. You see, in Ultimate Custom Night, you get an item called a Death Coin that can eliminate one animatronic from the game. But if you use it on Golden Freddy, you don't eliminate him from the game, you just get jump scared by Fredbear. And then hear some strange sounds. Huh, it almost sounds like Fredbear is underwater, which we all know is going to be terrible for those spring locks. Anyway, I played around with those audio files and got it to here. Laughter, obviously. Let's find a suit that's right for you. And there was more fantasy and fun where I came from. That last one feels really random, right? Like, "Arrgh, I'm an angry spirit who just killed you, but let me tell you about my love of fantasy, fairies, and long walks on the beach first. I'm very in touch with my emotions." However, the phrase fantasy and fun is a direct reference to the first game in the franchise, where Phone Guy welcomes you to
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life.
It's Scott telling us that Golden Freddy is the same spirit who speaks to the crying child via the Fredbear plush at the end of FNAF 4, but who dates all the way back to the first pizzeria and the missing children's incident. Phew, you got all that? Good, because that's the easy stuff. Well, not easy, obviously, considering I'm on page 4 of this script and I've only just talked about the first event in the series. But there is consistent logic and evidence to back it all up. However, it's at this point that things get messy from a timeline standpoint. You see, right now there are two dangling threads of events that directly conflict with each other. One, the first Freddy Fazbear location has to close so it can reopen sometime before 1987. However, it has to remain open at least until 1983 when the FNAF 4 bite happens, the event that prompts Phone Guy to call back to the FNAF 1 location informing them that the Springlock suits are being retired.
Welcome to your new career as a performer / entertainer for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Right now we have two specially designed suits that double as both animatronic and suit. After learning of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures, the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees.
This is important because Phone Guy later makes a point of saying that the spring body suit is still being moved.
Management has also been made aware that the spring body animatronic has been noticeably moved.
Which implies that Afton is still still using it to kill kids, aka the missing children's incident is still going on even after the night of 1983. That would all be fine except for point number 2. According to Hand Unit and Sister Location, Circus Baby's Pizza World is opened after Freddy Fazbear's is closed.
Due to the massive success and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set up unattended for another contender in children.
Again, this wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't for the empty girl's bedroom that we see in FNAF 4. As we established in a previous episode using the FNAF survival logbook, the crying child is Michael Afton, which would make this the sister's of Elizabeth Afton, the girl who gets herself clawed and goes on to possess Baby on the opening day of Baby's Pizzeria. That's why she's missing and why her room is empty. But that can't happen if Freddy's is still open, and Freddy's can't be closed until the night of 83 causes the spring locks to be retired so that home guy can get called. You see the problem there? Do you understand why creating a timeline of all this stuff is so darn complicated? Anyway, to move forward, we have to apply rule number 1 that I talked about earlier and throw out information for the events to work. Freddy Fazbear's first location closes in the aftermath of the missing children's incident. With no pizzeria to serve as his murder den, Afton tries to launch a new restaurant, Circus Baby's Pizza World. It's important to note that this is and not the underground rental service you see in Sister Location. We'll get to that one much later. Based on the name, we can be confident that this place has a clown aesthetic, which makes it likely that all the animatronics who don't fit into the Freddy Fazbear series of restaurants were made specifically for this place. The Mini Arenas, Balloon Boy, JJ, Dee Dee, and of course, Baby. Notice how they all even look alike. However, on day 1 of the restaurant opening, Elizabeth, Afton's daughter, finds herself alone with Baby and gets herself clawed. We know that it's closed on day 1, both from Baby's story and Sister Location.
Did you know that I was on stage once? It wasn't for very long. Only one day.
And from this hidden news story about a supposed gas leak posted on Scott's website in the lead up to the release of the game. This in turn explains a lot of the weirdness going on. Why Elizabeth's room is empty, why Michael Afton has nightmares of animatronics with stomach mouths, and why William Lawson has so many surveillance cameras following him around. He doesn't want what happened to his daughter to also happen to his youngest son. You see why it's so important for Circus Baby's Pizza World to happen before the events of FNAF 4? Before 1983? A lot of pieces fit in place if it does. Anyway, in the aftermath of the tragedy, he buries Baby and most of the other humanoid characters under the facility that we'll eventually explore in Sister Location. The rest go on to the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, which is set to reopen. Running parallel to all of this, and I mean all of it, is Fredbear's Family Diner. Not the sister location we visited in the game's Sister Location, but the only sister location actually called a sister location by Phone Guy during his FNAF
Unfortunate incident in the Sister Location.
We know for a fact that Fredbear's Family Diner is the FNAF 4 location based on this purple hat teaser that came out in the game. Right when the image looked down in the bottom right corner, glance and you get yourself property of Fredbear's Family Diner. We also know that it should fit here in the timeline because of one small detail that Scott made note of with the release of FNAF 4's Halloween edition. While Nightmare Puppet and Nightmare Mangle weren't canon, he made it clear that Nightmare Balloon Boy was. Now, if I'm right about Circus Baby's Pizza World and the red-cheeked design of its characters, then the crying child would have come across Balloon Boy. He existed at this point in the timeline, but because both the Puppet and Mangle don't exist until the FNAF 2 location, neither of them would be appearing in his nightmares. Therefore, not canon. Therefore, the timeline continues to make sense. So at this point, we know how the story goes. William is working there as what appears to be a suit technician. Michael Afton, aka the crying child, has witnessed his friends and maybe even his sister get killed. I mean, he's even locked in the supply closet with what appears to be the body of Golden Freddy.
Safety is top priority at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is why the classic suits are being retired to an appropriate location while being looked at by our investigators.
At the end of the week, at his birthday party, he gets shoved into Fredbear's mouth by his brother, and crunch! He dead, son! The spirits of his dead friends, all 5 of them, remind them that they're still here for him, and the whole incident goes down in history as the bite of 83, based on both the TV Easter egg in FNAF 4 and the code in Sister Location Secret Room. And again, it's here to make you see, in the next all one asks Michael whether his favorite ride was Carousel, a feature that was only present in the FNAF 2 restaurant. This also coincides with my hypothesis earlier about the Midnight Motorist minigame and Junior's being another name for Freddy's 2. It would make sense that that place that he's going to is indeed him running out earlier than we thought. Remember, Fredbear's Family Diner being open doesn't include a new Freddy's location from also being open at the same time. The new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria is just open earlier than we all thought, at least as early as 1983, and continuing through 1987 when a new series of murders happened from Plant 87 gets it closed down. This all allows Michael to sit in that place again after Carousel be his favorite, but still died in 1983. Because William doesn't want to lose another child, although she's in his own killing spree, he puts security cameras everywhere and uses the illusion sound discs first introduced in the Twisted Ones novel to scare Michael away from the restaurant. That's what he means by enemy sorry when he gets back. William is intentionally locking him in his room, giving him nightmares. That's why Michael is so scared by the time we see him in FNAF 4. Additionally, Ultimate Custom Night proves that the nightmare animatronics are just that. Nightmares. Illusions.
This time, there is more than an illusion to fear. I am given flesh to be your tormentor.
Both these lines indicate that before, they were just an illusion, they had no flesh. But now, in the latest game, they are real. So contrary to popular belief, these things were never real animatronics. Just a glorified way for William to keep his son away from his murder locations. Except, obviously, it didn't work. Despite his best, well, maybe not his best, but definitely his most stalkerish efforts, Michael gets plunged and dies. Becomes very problematic for the timeline, considering that Michael Afton clearly survives till the end of the games. We see him in Sister Location. We watch him get scooped. We hear about him burning in FNAF 6. How is all of that possible if he's already dead? Surprisingly, there is a way to solve it, and I have the evidence to prove it, but sadly it'll have to wait until next time. This ended up being a 12-page script, which there's no way that we can do all in 1 week. So in the words of Dee Dee, how unfortunate, how unfortunate. This is a thing I hate to do, but the rest has to go in a part 2. Anyway, don't worry, we'll get it out as fast as possible. It's already written. I just need to divide this up for editing purposes. In the meantime, though, make sure you jump scare that subscribe button to... well, who knows what it does at this point, but it makes me feel good about the effort I put into this video, which is really nice, so make me feel good. It also improves the likelihood that you're gonna see the conclusion of this episode, which is even better. And in the meantime, if you missed my last FNAF theories, well, watch the ones from FNAF 6, linked on screen right now. You'll need them to really understand part 2 of this theory when we get into the more recent events. Now, if you'll excuse me, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory. I've gotta go roll into recording part 2 right now, so I'm gonna go do that. Yeehaw! Final FNAF theories! Anyway, now that we've spent an entire episode chronicling the fictional deaths of 10 to 12... oh, no, I forgot the puppet, so that brings it up to a baker's dozen of 13! Now that we've accounted for all those children's heinous murders, let's talk about security. No, really, as it turns out, you don't need a human-sized security puppet wandering around your house to keep you safe, but you could probably use a VPN. They're smaller, they require less maintenance, and they are like 100% less murdery. Conveniently, the sponsor for today's episode is NordVPN, which, if you've never used a VPN before, is a great place to start. I've talked about online security and VPNs in a lot of other episodes, from the whole Watch_Dog series to a full episode of Game Lab where I hung out with real-world hackers. If you haven't seen those, you should probably check them out because they're what started my interest in using VPNs to begin with. Before that, I didn't really even know what a VPN was, but the short story about them is that they're a program that redirects all the data that comes in and out of your computer from the internet, thereby making it a lot harder for someone to hack you, or for other malicious stuff to happen to your devices. It's basically like your own personal internet filter. And there are two things that I like a lot better about Nord than other VPNs, because, like I said, after those Watch_Dogs episodes, I've tried a bunch. First, Nord allows you to connect 6 devices with just 1 subscription, meaning that you don't have to feel wonky about connecting to public Wi-Fi anymore, whether it's using your computer at McDonald's or your phone at Wendy's. I just really like fast food and the internet, and the combination of both those things, okay? Second, the Theorist team and I actually tested Nord's connection speeds relative to other VPNs that we've tried in the past, and objectively, it's way faster. As you can imagine, I go through a heck of a lot of internets working on these episodes, so to me, that was the single most important thing about a VPN. So if you've been worried about connecting to a sketchy Wi-Fi network somewhere, if you have roommates who are fast and loose with your home internet password, or you just want a little bit more protection for all your personal information, get yourself some peace of mind and check out Nord. There's a link to them down in down in the description below, so click it down there, or simply head to nordvpn.com/madpat, where they're having a huge discount off of their subscriptions with our code. Seriously, it is almost 80% off, which is massive. So go and do it now. Protect yourself the theorist way. Hackers are way scarier than animatronics. I don't know what you're still waiting for. Security Puppet was not effective. I mean, look at how many kids still died. What were they thinking?
Dear Diary, yesterday was so amazing. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. Who are you gonna call? Psychic friend, friend. This time you'll have to keep up with me. Oh, never mind. Is the purple man the phone guy?
Exotic. But
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where, before we close the book on our final FNAF theory, it's time to open the book on new back-to-school merch. Or back-to-work post-summer vacation merch. Anyway, you guys know that I take merch super seriously, but this time I wanted to try something really different. You guys clearly like mysteries and theories, right? Well, this is, as far as I know, the first ever YouTuber merch that gets totally meta. That's right, I have personally made a real-world mystery for you to solve alongside the rest of the theorist community hidden inside of this round of merch. This first one isn't too hard. It's about a 5-step treasure hunt, but it's something I'd like to do moving forward with all future merch pushes, so, you know, if this one gets you warmed up, future ones are gonna get real serious. Oh, and of course, there's a real-life reward to the first 100 people who get to the end of this little treasure hunt. They're gonna be in the same group as the people with the golden coins from last merch push, so, you know, rewards are coming. We're keeping track of this stuff. So, where could these clues be hiding? Let me show you what I got. This time we worked with the factory for 4 months to have a specialty fabric made for our t-shirts. This isn't just your typical ink some stuff on a shirt merch. It is all built into the fabric itself. It comes in Genocide Run or Pacifist Run editions. Or you can be a total completionist and get both. Also, since it's back to school season, we made a new heavier duty backpack. Like, this thing is solid. It is loaded with tons of pockets and places to store pretty much everything you own. It is rugged enough to hike up a mountain. Or, let's be serious, more likely to be loaded down with 5 AP textbooks and dragged between convention halls at Anime Expo. You can do all of those things too. There are new socks to complete your outfit since, let's face it, you can never have enough neon green articles of clothing. A pop socket, which, if you're not familiar with them, is the single most useful phone device that you will ever own. Hate dropping your phone on your face at night? Well, now you don't have to. You want to prop up that phone to binge watch FNAF theories? Pop that socket. You want an easier way to take photos? Sock it to me. Get 2 and you wrap your headphone cord around it. Seriously, these things are the best. They're so darn simple and they are so effective. And what back-to-school collection would be complete without your own theorist moleskin notebook? Now, I know from meeting you all at conventions that so many of you are either artists, writers, or theorists of your own looking for notebooks to help your ideas. So this was something that I thought a lot of you would appreciate. It even comes complete with some pages ripped straight out of my own theory game store. All of it works great, it looks great, but most importantly of all, it's gonna make you feel great. So get on it. Ace your back-to-school look right now by heading over to the merch site. It went live with this episode. Or you can always wait to the end of the episode where I can throw that link right to the video itself, or you can always dual-wield the windows next to each other so you can do both at the same time. The only thing I gotta say is do it now, because when we run out, this stuff is gone. Everything is limited edition. And the last round of merch we had, some stuff started to sell out the first 24 hours. If you place an order this week, you're guaranteed to get it before the end of the month. So go ahead, give it a look. I hope you like what you see, and I cannot wait to see you sport this new Game Theory green. Now then, let's wrap up FNAF, shall we? Even though this is part 2 of the timeline, we've still got a lot to cover, so in the words of Phil DeFranco,
let's just jump into it.
When last we left things, we covered everything up through the second Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria location. Things like why missing chances and must be the first bit of the timeline, the identity of Golden Freddy, why Circus Baby's Pizza World has to come earlier in the timeline than most people expect, and a quick review over how Michael Afton is the crying child for FNAF 4. But all of that left us with a big question. If Michael Afton is the crying child who gets himself bit, then how is he able to come back into the timeline for games like Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator? Well, this is where the books once again come in to give us the solution that no one would predicted. You see, at the end of FNAF 4, we get the lines, "You are still your friends. Do you still believe that? I will put you back together." We've never actually established who speaks those words. Ultimately, the best guess that we had was the puppet. But here's the thing, it can't be the puppet. Based on this, my final and best timeline of events, William hasn't killed Henry's daughter yet. The puppet isn't possessed yet. Instead, that line is more likely coming from William. It's him making a fateful promise to his dead son. "I will put you back together." The thing is, takes that promise a lot more literally than any of us would have ever suspected. He is literally promising to physically put his son back together as a robot. And we know from the final FNAF novel, The Fourth Closet, that William in that story is obsessed with bringing life to these machines. And even more importantly, we know that in Scott's vision of this world, robots think they're human and don't realize that they're robots is a real thing. A huge twist at the end of the FNAF novel is that the main character, Charlie, Henry's daughter, is actually revealed to be one of these robots. And not just a single robot, mind you. Charlie is one of a series of 4 robots. The book is referencing that she was kidnapped and killed by Afton as a 3-year-old girl, and in his grief over losing his daughter, Henry built 4 robotic versions of her, each one slightly older than the last. It led to each version with memories so that she could grow up just like a normal kid. Quote, "Charlie was a baby, then a sulky teenager, then at last be a perfect." End quote. It's weird that William ends up a whole lot of plot holes in the novel, but I honestly think that this might be what happens to Michael Afton in the games. Clearly, he dies during the bite of 83. The survival logbook confirms this over and over and over again. That is locked in. But Michael is literally rebuilt Afton, put back together, and so he clearly keeps the timeline that most importantly of all, it is why he doesn't die after getting schooled in sister location. Why his memory is so foggy throughout the survival logbook, but most importantly of all, why he can only die through fire. Have you ever stopped to consider that? Michael Afton lives through getting himself scooped at the end of Sister Location, but passes on just like all the other animatronics at the end of FNAF 6, when the remnant in his body is burned away. Remember, based on our timeline, William Afton has already seen his daughter die in Circus Baby, and has also probably seen that her spirit possesses the suit. So he knows it's possible for a living spirit to be inside these robots. It actually might be why he sends Michael down to explore Sister Location in the first place.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I put her back together, just like you asked me to.
He knows that Michael's sister, his daughter, is still down there, so he's aware of what she is, and it might be his way of breaking the news to Michael. "Hey there, kiddo, there was something I was meaning to tell you, but unfortunately, I'm kinda trapped in a wall right now. So go down into that creepy cellar I have and pay a visit to your sister. She might prompt some really existential revelations." And lastly, consider this. In the bonus cutscenes for Sister Location, Baby establishes that she knows that Michael can't die.
You won't die, you won't die, you won't die, you won't die.
So she might just recognize that they're one and the same. This insane sounding theory, and trust me, I recognize that it sounds completely bonkers, may actually tie into the mystery of the FNAF 4 box. What's in it? It might actually be Michael Afton's body. Yeah, remember how I just said that in the 4th closet the main character was actually the 3rd in a series of 4 robots? Well, she almost gets herself killed at the end of Book 2, and is discovered midway through Book 3, locked in a box that sounds very similar to the one that appears at the end of FNAF 4. Quote, "John moved to a large green chest, the paint almost entirely worn off. There was no lock. John knelt beside it, found the handle, and heaved it open, then shuddered. It's Charlie," he said hoarsely. "In the chest. She was locked in a box. That's insane. She was locked in a box. Who knows for how long? Days? Months?" End quote. I actually know how long she was trapped in the box. It was 6 months. So anyway, is this definitive proof of what's in the box and that Michael Afton is a robot? No. But it's definitely circumstantial evidence. And think about this. Remember that Scott kept the box locked because he was worried that the fan base wouldn't accept the answer to what was inside of it. Well, can you blame him? If he kept a broken robot kid inside of the box, that would probably upset a few people, because at this point in the series, it would literally come out of nowhere. Up to FNAF 4, this was just the story of a creepy, haunted animatronic pizzeria. Nothing about robot kids or anything like that. The last stretch of this series just went into some weird directions. Anyway, with the bite of 83, Fredbear's Family Diner closes, leaving only Freddy Fazbear's second location, Junior's, a new, larger location with upgraded security in the form of the toy animatronics. But after all the missing children from their last endeavor, Henry wanted to take an extra special precaution to further protect his daughter. He installed an upgraded surveillance system in the form of security puppets, specifically programmed to watch one child, his daughter. As an added nod to where security puppet fits into the timeline, Scott very clearly included the puppet's signature gift box as part of the visuals in its minigame in FNAF 6, a box that only occurs in the FNAF 2 location. You can even see what looks to be wanted posters in the back alley, thereby establishing that a crime had been committed in this area previously. William Afton returns and, because he's a prime suspect in the missing children's incident, is not allowed back at the pizzeria. That's why we see him turned away at the door to Junior's. As a result, he's forced to kill Henry's daughter outside, behind the facility. Her soul goes on to possess the security puppet, and she proceeds to give life to all the other lost souls still trapped in the original 5 animatronics. We know this based on the Save Them minigame, where we see the puppet searching for someone to help the dead children lying around the pizzeria. The toy animatronics are standing on stage lifeless, but most tellingly of all, we see the original versions of Foxy, Chica, and Bonnie inactive in the parts and supply room, and yet Freddy is somehow able to freely move around. Shows us that some of the OG animatronics haven't been given gifts, given life gifts. It's also worth noting that on rare instances, we get Easter eggs Golden Freddy broken down on the floor, his ghost himself phasing into non-existence. And that's not all. Get close to him, and for a brief moment, you catch a glimpse of a white dot behind his eye, only the spirit of Cassidy already in him. Except there are 2 problems. First, he's a spring-lock suit. Unlike the others, he can't freely move around because he's not kept in animatronic mode. Despite the puppet's best attempts, he's forever trapped in a suit that is perpetually slumped over. But secondly, the yellow Golden Freddy suit is being kept like we saw in FNAF 4. Hence why in FNAF 2 and then onward in the series, he's forced to remain as just a spirit. Afton continues to sneak into the pizzeria disguised as a security guard, using his signature spring-lock suit and prank to kill kids. This prompts the animatronics to get angry and attack anyone in a security guard uniform. As we see throughout the FNAF novels, and as the puppet reinforces an ultimate custom night,
the others are like animals, but I am very aware.
So they're not rationally thinking, which results in night guard turned to day guard Jeremy Fitzgerald getting his frontal lobe bit in an event known as the Bite of 87, and henceforth animatronics are no longer allowed to free rotate the restaurants. In total, another 5 children died in the FNAF 2 location, again shown in the Save Them minigame before the place is shut down and the toy animatronics get scrapped. Since, let's be honest, they were all kind of crap for the job anyway. But more importantly, it's at this point that Afton realizes the power of children's souls. It's here where he first sees the animatronics moving freely, possessed by the spirits of the dead children and activated by the puppets. And here at the end of the series, his mission changes. He's no longer just killing kids. He's now looking to actively harness that power for himself so he can be immortal. It's a goal that he expresses in the 4th closet. Quote, "You killed them. They died in the suits. Their bodies were bound inside along with their souls. The spirit follows the flesh to its sin, and also the pain. If I wish to become my own immortal creation, my body must lead my spirit to its eternal home." This affects all his future actions in the series. So when the withered animatronics get sent back to the FNAF 1 location for storage and the possible reopening of the pizzeria, William tracks them back to dismantle them and discover their power. This leads to the cutscenes from FNAF 3, where William systematically lures the original animatronics to the back safe room one by one, only to dismantle them. Before, these cutscenes seemed super random. It just seemed like him trying to get rid of the animatronics for reasons. But now, thanks to the novels, we actually know why he did it, to dissect the robots and experiment on them. And it's these experiments that end up producing the Funtime animatronics. One big lingering question mark of the series was the nature of the Funtime animatronics deep underground during Sister Location. How were they alive? Were they possessed by more dead kids? Well, we finally have our answer there, courtesy of Candy Cadet and the Fourth Closet. Now, back in FNAF 6, Candy Cadet's stories were a bit of a mystery. Each one had to do with 5 things becoming one thing. 5 keys melted together, 5 orphans sewn together to fit into one coffin, 5 kittens sacrificed and then combined to fit into one shoebox. It seemed like it was referring to Ennard, the amalgamation of all the other animatronic parts, but the math was always kinda wonky. Ennard consisted of Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy, and Funtime Foxy, just 4 animatronics. Maybe if you squinted at it, you could the body puppet, but that seemed like a stretch, and as a result, we just weren't quite sure what was going on with those stories. Luckily, the release of the Fourth Closet has cleared this mystery up. Whoa, a single figure stood still amongst the chaos, out of phase with the surroundings. At first, it seemed to be a man bent over a table, but as Carlton's head throbbed with waves of confusion, the man became a yellow rabbit, not standing over a table, but over 5 children, tied together as one. He knew exactly what he was looking at. Endoskeletons of the original Freddy's animatronics, welded and melded together, immobile and featureless, and still inhabited by the spirits of the children who had been murdered inside of them so many years ago. Still filled with life, and motion, and thought, all dragged, all into the whole game. So in the FNAF 3 cutscenes, you see William dismantle the animatronics. There he melts down their exoskeletons to discover the secret of their everlasting life. He then uses this molten spirit that will remnant to infuse life with his creations. The Funtime animatronics explode again. The table's surface was glowing orange with a hot metal hit. William took a syringe from the woman's hand and thrust it into the squirming thing forcefully. He drew the plunger up, holding the needle steady as the syringe filled with molten substance. He staggered back toward the bear. The man again pried open the heavy chest plate of the standing, broken bear, then carefully inserted the syringe he held directly into the chest cavity and began to press the plunger down. What this and the Candy Cadet stories tell us is that the Funtimes weren't just possessed by new kids, they were created from the remnant of the original 5, fused together in one chaotic mess. Like the there's a piece of every body. From those experiments, William is able to open Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals, the underground facility from Sister Location. Using Remnant, he brings life to animatronics specifically designed to lure and trap kids so he can have more test subjects for his experiments. He then rents the robots out to special events and locations. Why isn't there a Funtime Chica in Sister Location? Simply because she's rented out. We see this hidden in the source code to Scott's website around the time of Sister Location's release. Chica's Party World is a separate location, a client of Afton Robotics, and as such, she's not being kept underground with the rest of them. That's why she's gone, only to then reappear in FNAF 6 and Custom Nights. But there was one thing that William Afton didn't anticipate in all his plans: the spirits of the children wanting revenge. Now that they were freed from their animatronic prisons, they corner William in the safe room of the first Freddy Fazbear's restaurant, forcing him to hide out in the golden body suit, which snaps shut, almost killing him. That's what? The restaurant sealed the safe room and everything inside was
Safe room will be sealed in most locations, including this.
To me, this seems like the actions of Henry. Who else would see a bloody, living body? Seems like the best bet, but we can't know for sure. Regardless, Afton is locked back there until the year 2023 when Fazbear Fright opens. The phone dude discovers the hidden room and sets Afton on Springtrap loose once more. From there, we know pretty much everything else. Springtrap haunts Fazbear Fright only to have it burned down. It seems to me that this again was Henry's doing. The ultimate custom-night samurai cutscenes symbolize their relationship. William Afton is the fox, and Freddy is the bear of vengeance. The last line of dialogue in the samurai cutscenes says it best: I will pursue the fox. I will find him in whatever land he is led to. It is my destiny, and it is his. Henry is constantly trying to thwart William in escalating fashion. mission. He starts by getting him kicked out of the FNAF 2 location. He then tries to get him arrested in the aftermath of the missing children's incident. He traps him, bleeding and spring-locked in the walls of Freddy Fazbear's, and finally he sets him on fire not just once in Fazbear Fright, but a second time in Pizzeria Simulator. Meanwhile, the rebuilt Michael Afton, Michael version 2.0, searches for his dad to get some answers. He starts in Sister Location, meets Baby, but falls victim to the plot of the mysterious tangle of spirits held in the various Funtime animatronics. Together, they form Ennard and scoop Michael's body in an attempt to escape their prison. The scooping plan works, but Michael survives because, remember, he's a robot. Baby seems to know this based on her repeated use of
You won't die, you won't die.
More in need of answers than ever before, Michael promises his father,
I'm going to come find you.
which leads us at last to FNAF 6. Even though the puppet tried to free the spirits of the dead children in FNAF 3, it doesn't quite work. This is because the spirits were no longer complete. The parts of their souls now trapped in the Funtime animatronics, which themselves are now in form of Freddy. This is why Paragraph 4 is such a big deal throughout FNAF 6. Based on the insanity ending blueprints, Paragraph 4 stipulates that all creatures containing Remnant must be in the pizzeria by the end of the week, so that when it burns, everyone goes with it. All remaining Remnant must be purged in order for the souls to finally be set free. Michael accepts the role as night guard in the pizzeria. Henry summons all the animatronics there, burns it all to the ground, and finally releases everyone, including condemning William to hell. Well, he didn't release everyone. Golden Freddy, still a vengeful spirit, has a bone to pick with Willie, so he traps him in purgatory, forcing him to suffer for eternity at the hands of the monsters he created. And despite Old Man Consequences telling her to relax, she won't quit, hence her soul still being in Golden Freddy's twitching eyes as he fades out into the darkness and as the series hits its final. I don't know about you, but between these last two videos, I think that's about as thorough as you could possibly want. So there you have it, FNAF theorists. As deep of a deep dive as I can go, trying to answer as many questions as possible, all while putting things into an order that makes sense, while also accounting for as much of the evidence as possible. Is it a perfect timeline? No, but I don't think there can be. I think Mr. Hippo's custom timelines point us in that direction.
I suppose if a person just wants to talk, it's best to not announce that you're telling a story. Telling a story does come with its own pressures and expectations. I suppose, after all, if you was talking to a friend, no more expectations than if you were talking into the wind. Words by themselves aren't expected to carry, aren't expected to stick. But if you announce you're telling a story, well then, there'd better be a point to it all, you know?
And conversely, at some point, you just analyze down a story to the point of meaninglessness. In the end, whether this whole timeline is right or wrong, decoding FNAF's labyrinth of lore has been the single most exciting and enjoyable challenge I've covered on this channel. Yeah, we've covered it a lot. A bit more than I would have liked, quite honestly, but for good reason. Few games give their story this much thought, and even fewer games tell their stories in such a compelling, mysterious way. I've said this for a while now, but FNAF is the perfect modern game. It's cheap, if not free, so anyone can play it. The mechanics are simple. It's fun to watch other people play it.
Like right
Damn it! And it seeds in Easter eggs that get other people talking online. 4 years later, and still, only a handful of indie games and practically zero AAA games have followed in its footsteps, despite FNAF's massive success. And that, perhaps, is the single greatest and saddest mystery of them all. If this truly is the end, thanks God for an incredible ride and providing a game that has forever changed my life and this channel. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thank you for watching every single one of these videos. Woo! Now that the FNAF mystery is solved, go out and solve my merch mystery. I'm not gonna be doing a theory on this one, so it is up to you to come to the solution. Remember, first 100 people to solve the mystery get a special prize. I worked really hard on this merch. I'm really proud of how everything turned out. I think you're gonna love every item that we're offering, so check it out. Click the link you see on screen right now to check out the merch store and place an order because supplies are absolutely limited. If previous campaigns have shown us anything, it's that things can sell out really fast, so if you're interested, check it out right now. So now if you'll excuse me, I'm so excited to do something other than FNAF. Wonder what Fortnite's up to these days. Season 5! That's it. I give up. Scott, you beat me. I can't solve FNAF. I can't. But I'm close. So darn close. And this time, I need you guys to come in. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where the fourth closet is a recording closet. Now, most of you are probably confused about that opening reference, which means that you haven't implanted Scott Cawthon with an RFID tracker that follows his every movement. Fortunately, I have, which means that I can tell you two things. One, Scott spends a lot of time on the toilet. Gotta stop maxing out the spicy salsa at Chipotle, Scotty C. Us old people gotta watch our digestive biomes. And two, the FNAF series may have quote-unquote ended with FNAF 6, but our time with the 13 variations of the same darn animatronic bear are far from over because Scott has been quietly working away on his pièce de résistance, Ultimate Custom Night. All your favorite characters from all the games attacking you all at the same time. 51 characters, all able to be cranked up to level 20. I gotta be real, Markiplier, might be time to be giving up your FNAF crown. That means there can only be one. Dokken, save us. You're our only hope. Anyway, if you're wondering why this episode took so long to come out, that's one of the big reasons why. I was afraid that, like the last custom night, I'd be working on the theory of the DLC would come out with hidden scenes explaining the lore, and then suddenly I'd have to contend with even more purple people puking up robotic spaghetti in the middle of the streets. But based on Scott's playtesting, where right now he's averaging a survival time of 15 seconds, it looks like I may have an opening here. Since it's been a while, let me remind you that we've already covered a lot of ground here in videos 1 and 2 of the series. Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, otherwise known as FNAF 6, was created with the intention to tie up a lot of loose ends, both for Scott and for the game franchise. We learned that William's business partner Henry, who we were first introduced to back in FNAF World and later in the novels, does in fact play a role in the mainline series of the games. Henry is canon. In FNAF 6, he creates a simulated pizzeria to serve as a trap, luring in all the remaining animatronics. One could say it was a locked box to put all the pieces together. Henry then pulls a Thanos and turns everyone into an ashy pile.
I'm not feeling too good, Foxy.
Henry's hit list included Springtrap, aka William Afton, aka the metaphorical purple guy, Baby, aka William's daughter Elizabeth, Ennard, aka the combination of Old Freddy / Melora / Funtime Foxy, your player character Michael Afton, aka the literal purple guy, picking up robot spaghetti, and the newcomer Lefty, like Wally, but with less robot lovey-dovey and more robot stabby-stabby. We learned through the cheat insanity ending and other in-game clues that Lefty is entertainment, built specifically by Henry to lure and trap the puppet, which is possessed by the spirit of his deceased daughter, who remains nameless. The insanity ending also gave us clues as to how the Funtime animatronics function. Unlike the OGs, the Funtimes are heated up and infused with remnant, basically sword juice that's extracted from kidnapped children. But that was all just surface stuff. For our analysis of the free maze minigame and clues from FNAF 2, we were able to piece together that this dead dog is probably Magno, and that this girl becomes one of Afton's early victims. It's clearly not his daughter, notice the eye color, and it's not Henry's daughter, notice the hair color, so it must be one of William Afton's victims. And that's pretty much everything we covered in my last 2 videos. But now it's time to get to the new stuff, starting with this girl. Not only do we know that this is one of William Afton's earliest victims, we also know that her name is Susie, and that she goes on to possess Chica. That's right, we can identify her based on this image. If you manage to find all the game's Easter eggs, you unlock the Lore Keeper certificate and a final screen at the end of the game, a hillside filled with gravestones. Graves with a very diverse set of names, 5 in the foreground with 1 name obscured, and then 1 in the back, with, again, the name hidden from view. Trust me, I tried my best to pull CSI on that one. Enhance. Enhance again. Enhance a 3rd time. Damn it, Scots! Anyway, this imagery should seem pretty familiar, right? 4 graves with 4 names, 3 boys and a girl, which perfectly matches up to our core 4 animatronics, 3 boy robots and a girl robot. To further solidify the point, look at how the graves are arranged. It's a pattern that's identical to the arrangement of the masks in the good ending of FNAF 3, even down to the girl character being third in line and slightly behind the other two. Coincidence? I think you know the answer to that by now. Then you have this mysterious fifth grave hidden off to the side. That one definitely contains the soul of whoever winds up possessing Golden Freddy, but more on that one later. And lastly, there's this one overlooking them all. Up on the top of the hill, that's the puppet. Henry's daughter, the one who watches over the rest. 6 main characters, 6 graves, and the same 6 characters that we see fade away during the Happiest Day minigame at the end of FNAF 3's good ending. In short, what the gravestone scene is revealing to us is who these victims are, with Susie as Chica. That also means Freddy is really named Gabriel, Foxy is Fritz, and Bonnie is Jeremy. It's also relatively easy to figure out the name on the puppet's grave, Charlie or Charlotte, one of the two. We know this not through the games, but rather through the books. But the books aren't canon, I hear you saying, and you're absolutely right, they're not. But they're starting to cross over very heavily. For instance, the entire reveal of William Afton having a business partner named Henry, he was first introduced in the Silver Eyes long before Sister Location ever came out. You ever wonder about this weird wolf poster hanging in the alley of FNAF 6? It's actually one of the Twisted animatronics from the second novel, The Twisted Ones, who are programmed to hide during the day by burying themselves in shallow graves, then dig themselves up at night to roam the countryside looking for innocent victims with more. And wouldn't you know it, but that's exactly what we see hinted at in the FNAF 6 minigame Midnight Motorist. By going through the game's secret exit and then plowing your car into this random area between the trees, you're able to get out in a clearing in the middle of a forest. And in the upper left corner of the screen is a pile of unmarked dirt. You can't interact with it, the game doesn't acknowledge it at all, but very clearly it is intentionally there. It's super random, right? It is, until you read The Twisted Ones. Or have me read it for you, because seriously, that's why I'm here. Page 74, Charlie reached the backyard and she stopped dead. Before her were 3 huge holes in the ground. The graves. Something climbed out of these. End quote. So clearly, even though the books aren't canon, there is significant crossover with the characters and events from the series. In the books, Henry had a daughter named Charlotte. In the games, Henry has a daughter who goes on to become the puppet. It only makes sense for them to share the name. Hence, gravestone number 5. But it's gravestone number 6 where, to be honest, after months of brainstorming, working and reworking sequences of events and analyzing imagery, I have to regrettably admit defeats. You heard that right. For the first time ever on the show, I have to throw in the towels. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of leads here. Loose threads that I know go somewhere, and I feel like I just a step or 2 away from putting it all together, but I just can't quite do it, and I hate to admit it. And honestly, that's the other reason why this video has taken so long for me to write and put together. I didn't want to admit defeat. I didn't want to come to you without a complete idea of what was going on, but honestly, at this point, I'm almost out of ideas, and I need your help, or maybe even a little helpful nudge from Scott Coffin in the comments to help put it all together. Which honestly could be a very important project for all of us to work on together. Anyway, let me explain. Grave 6 obviously belongs to Golden Freddy, and once we know that name, the messages of "It's me" that have been popping up since FNAF 1. It is a huge deal. And here's the biggest twist of them all. We're not shooting in the dark here. Scott has already given us all the information that we need to solve what the name actually is. You see, the trio of novels isn't the only book that Scott Cawthon's released. Late last year, Scott released the Five Nights at Freddy's Survival Logbook, an activity workbook for kids filled with things like simple quizzes about the games, drawing projects, and writing prompts. The theme is that you're a new night guard at the Freddy's restaurant. It's adorable! Until you realize it's a book asking kids who their stuff would go to when they die a gruesome, horrific death trapped inside a furry suit. It's some dark, dark stuff. But perhaps the darkest part of the book is the dabbing Chica. Anyway, things start to feel more than they seem from page 1, when it's revealed that this book once belonged to a guy named Mike. And one look at the book's word search immediately clues you in that there's way more here than meets the eye, putting the likes of Gravity Falls Journal number 3 on blast. Basically, the Five Nights at Freddy's Survival Logbook is a book-length metagame dedicated to revealing Golden Freddy's real name, all disguised as a children's activity workbook. It is unquestionably my favorite thing that this franchise has yet produced. That is no exaggeration. This thing is so cool, but the problem is, I can't solve it. Here's how it all breaks down. Several pages throughout the book contain faded text that says, "My name." Each of those pages with that text also has a numeric clue hidden on it. Sometimes it's written in plain sight, sometimes with numbers out of place, sometimes the page number itself is wrong. Page 29 is numbered 52. Page 32 is numbered 39. 47, the numbers 7 and 2 appear out of order in this survey question. On page 85, we're presented with a list, and numbers 10 and 11 appear in red. On page 108, the time 8:11 appears at an incident report that Mike was supposed to log in. So putting all those numeric clues in order, we get 52, 39, 15, 7, 2, 10, 11, 8, 11. But that's just the beginning. Throughout the book, there are some coupons for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. On one of those coupons, we see that Mike wrote himself the message, real value, see page 61. Page 61, and suddenly you see he finished the comic strip exercise, where in one of the panels, he's standing in front of a chalkboard with 5 plus 4 written in one part and a 3 written in the bottom right corner. To me, this very clearly tells us that we need to add the two numbers together on each of those 6 pages from earlier to get the real value for that page. 5 plus 2 is 7, 3 plus 9 is 12, 1 plus 5 is 6, 7 plus 2 is 9, 10 plus 11 is 21, and 8 plus 11 is 19. 7, 12, 6, 9, 21, 19, which seems like it's giving us a code with 6-letter names. But now, what do you do with those numbers? Well, one page of the book contains a giant grid that encourages readers to draw in 8-bit. So if you look closely at the grid's axes are actually numbered, and there are tiny letters in the grid's first few boxes. It seemed to me like this grid was setting up an alphanumeric code where the numbers each get represented by a different letter. Putting 7, 12, 6, 9, 21, and 19 into that, you get Gilpheus. It's clearly not Golden Freddy's real name. But then what about that 3 that's in the bottom right corner of the chalkboard? I tried shifting all the letters and numbers 3 up and 3 down, decoding, recoding. Still nothing that would make any sort of sense. I wasn't admitting defeat yet. The fact that all this is happening on a grid seemed to point to the numbers being decoded using a Visionaire cipher. If you've never encountered these before, well, welcome to the exciting world of cryptography, the art of solving codes. Visionaire ciphers are one of the most famous codes out there. Basically, you need a giant alphabet grid and a keyword. So, say I want to include the word crying child, that's called my plain text, and I want my keyword to be Mike. What I would do is, in my alphabet grid, go over to my first letter, the C in crying, and then go down to the row M. One time the column R for the R in crying intersects with row I for the second letter in Mike to get a Z. That's my second encoded letter. And then keep going with column Y crossing with row K, and on, repeating the keyword over and over until I'm at the end of the phrase. If you've done it correctly, you get the ciphertext or encoded word Ozim Zamlun. Ozim Zamluton. Ozim Zamluton. Then to decode, you just reverse the process. And that's what I tried, over and over again, on and off again for months, and still nothing. Using those real values of 7, 12, 6, 9, 21, and 19, I tried everything. Different keywords like Mike, Chica, Friday, since it's on the magazine that Foxy's reading, Bonnie, Foxy, doing the process forwards and backwards, trying to shift everything by 3, both before and after the encoding and decoding process, since that's the random number on the chalkboard that has no explanation. I even started reversing the codes I was working with, since the number 3 on the chalkboard could potentially relate to page 3 of the survival guide, which specifically says take a moment for self-reflection. So that's what I did. I reflected the numbers before coding, after coding, reversing the alphabet. Still nothing. If you think that's a lot, I still wasn't done, because there are other oddities in this book. For unknown reasons, Mike has made red ink tally marks throughout it. On page 9, they're 5. On page 19, there are 10. On page 31, there are 14, but they're in 2 groups, a 5 and a 9. On page 36, there are 5. On page 100, there are again 5. No explanation, no nothing. But they can't just be random tally marks, right? They seem important, and they seem especially important because there are 6 tally hints, just like the 6 real values that we found hidden throughout the book earlier. So I've tried shifting the individual letters off of those tally marks. Nothing. Tried shifting the letters off the tallies, then shifting the results by that 3 that's on that chalkboard. Nothing. Added the tallies, then reversed. Nothing. And on and on and on. Hopefully this all gives you an idea of what I do for some of these theories, taking weeks just to brainstorm new ways to attack the problem, but this time I'm coming up empty-handed. I still have nothing. None of my attempts have yielded anything like a real word or name. It feels like I'm right there, like the solution is right in front of me, but I just can't quite grasp it. And this is where I have to raise the white flag. I don't know what to do. I need your help, or else I need Scott to give us some clues or something, because I am stumped. I feel like I've tried everything, and very clearly this is the way that Scott intends to reveal Golden Freddy's name. But without all of us working to solve it, that name will forever remain in mystery. And this is only the beginning. The survival guide is simultaneously the most important, most revealing, and most frustrating piece of evidence to be thrown into this franchise. Yes, the Golden Freddy puzzle is a huge part of that, but there's more. So much more. This book confirms so many assumptions about this series and unveils so many more mysteries than we ever thought possible. And the Golden Freddy mystery is just a small piece of that. The rest all relate to Michael Afton. But all of that will have to be in just a few days. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you wait months. So make sure you jump scare that subscribe button to ensure that you're here next week for what I guarantee is the most earth-shattering FNAF game theory since, I don't even know, FNAF 2. The things that we're covering next time completely upend a lot of what we thought we knew about this franchise, so get ready for a long one. And in the meantime, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for simultaneously staying patient for the release of this episode, as well as stomaching another multi-part FNAF episode. When you see next week's video, you'll understand why it had to be that way. Subscribe. Watch the past. Subscribe. Scott, you're causing me severe head injuries. Subscribe and make my pain worth it. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Screw It Unified. If I seem a bit off my game today, forgive me. Pull up a chair. Let's talk. Last episode caught you up on everything, and I do mean everything. All my past theories on FNAF 6, the gravestones, the masks, the names of the children inside the animatronics, the connections to the novels, and the identity of the puppet. But then, this, the FNAF Survival Logbook. The book that, in 7 years of doing this, finally broke me. A book that contains within its pages an elaborate series of codes that serve as the key to unlocking the identity of Golden Freddy. A freaking children's activity workbook with a damning Chica in it is the thing to defeat me. That damning Chica taunts me in my nightmares. But Golden Freddy's Unbreakable Code is only the tip of the iceberg. This book is like a repeated kick in the balls, as everything I thought I knew about FNAF has crumbled in front of my eyes. It's like Freddy Fazbear got a hold of the Infinity Gauntlet and snapped his fingers, and then all of my theories suddenly turned to dust. Because unlike the novels, which have questionable canonicity, the Survival Logbook outright answers a lot of our questions about these games. But the answers that it provides just lead to more questions. And not stupid small questions either, like what's Mangle's gender? No! It upends huge parts of the story. The logbook is simultaneously the most important, most revealing, and most frustrating piece of evidence to ever be thrown into this franchise. You see, as I mentioned last time, this workbook once belonged to Mike, aka Michael Afton. The book establishes that Mike writes his answers in red pen. It also establishes that there's a spirit possessing the book who speaks to Mike via lightly faded text. From what I can gather, it appears to be the spirit of Golden Freddy. And starting with that information, the logbook then proceeds to drop bombshell after bombshell as far as lore reveals go. First, the book outright confirms what we've known for a while now, that Mike is the same Mike who works as the night guard during Sister Location. When asked asked what he would like for his 1-week bonus, we see him doodling in the corners of the page baskets of money and baskets of exotic butters. On another page, he's drawing a smooth set of casual bongos. Sure, it's nothing earth-shattering, but when it comes to this franchise, getting any portion of any theory confirmed is a big win. And while that reveal might not be all that earth-shattering, you know what is? The book reveals that Michael Afton is who we play as in FNAF 4. On page 40, the workbook starts asking about dreams, and via his doodles, we see that Mike somehow knows the appearance of Nightmare Fredbear, something only the protagonist of FNAF 4 should be aware of. To further confirm this, on page 23 of the book, the spirit who uses the book to talk to Mike outright asks, "Was your favorite childhood toy a plastic purple telephone?" Which, as you may remember, is a direct reference to the purple telephone on the ground in the FNAF 4 bedroom. And if you still think it's a coincidence, it's not. 20 pages later, the spirit starts talking about whether any of the toys on the page look familiar. Most don't, except for one. The phone. Now, for the 8 of you who still remember how this whole freaking story fits together, you might be asking me, but we all thought the protagonist of FNAF 4 was the crying child, the one who gets himself bitten during the birthday party because you have flashes of a hospital bed and hear a flatline at the end of the game. We also assumed that the animatronic Nightmare was representative of death. And you know what? You're absolutely right. That is exactly what we've been thinking. And here's the thing, we weren't wrong. We've apparently been right about all of that, except there was one teeny tiny itsy bitsy little wrinkle that we didn't expect. Michael Afton was the bite victim. Michael Afton was the crying child. I know! I couldn't believe it either, but the proof here is unquestionable. On page 75, a page asking about imaginary friends and featuring the psychic friend Fredbear plush, the spirit outright asks, "Does he still talk to you?" And perhaps the most damning piece of evidence of all, on page 103, the huge reveal, quote, "The party was for you." Mike Afton is confirmed to be the crying child. He's the bite victim. He's the one who, at the end of the game, apparently needed to be put back together. It seems undeniable at this point. But then that leads to the obvious next question. How could he have been bitten and died there, but then also be in sister location as an adult, gotten himself scooped, blah, 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 until FNAF 6 when he finally burns with the rest of his family? I have been smacking my head against a wall trying to make sense of it all, and I have some theories. Big surprise there. It's interesting. When I did my final FNAF theory, not that one, my final FNAF theory. No, not that one either. Those are technically FNAF 6 theories. God, jeez, this one. When I did this theory, I concluded that the story of FNAF was, at its core, a story about a family, the Afton family. But now it's becoming increasingly clear to me that it's really the story of Michael Afton specifically. 4 games, 1 story, like Scott said back during the FNAF 4 days so long ago. It's the story of the crying child growing up, discovering the atrocities of his father, and then trying to make amends for them. We know for a fact that Michael Afton is the main character of FNAF 1 from the endgame paycheck, sister location from the name tag and custom night, FNAF 6 from Henry's closing monologue, and now FNAF 4 from the survival logbook. And we're still not done. The survival logbook also connects Mike to FNAF 2. On page 56, the spirit asks, "Was your favorite ride the carousel?" A question that only makes sense if Mike had been to the FNAF 2 location, because it's the only one with the carousel. That means that the only game without a solid connection to Mike is FNAF 3, but then there's the whole
It's me, Michael.
complete with a burned down Fazbear fright in the background, which seems to be hinting at him being the person who burned the place down, trying to put an end to his father's reign of terror. Michael Afton even shares a connection with the dead children whose names appear on the gravestones, going back to the survival logbook. See, I told you guys this thing was important. When the book asks about missing people on account of them being stuffed into animatronic suits, the spirit asks, "Do you miss them?" It clearly connects Michael Afton to the other missing kids who go on to possess the animatronic suits. This means that Michael is connected to every game and every major character in the story. So let's update it to 6 games, 1 story. Michael's story. Which is all very beautiful to say, but seriously, what is that story? If you've been paying attention, we still have a pretty big elephant in the room, i.e. a dead kid who somehow grows up to become an immortal purple skin suit for robot spaghetti. Oh, and if the game wasn't complicated enough, Michael might not even be his real real name. The spirit in the logbook repeatedly asks him, "What do you remember?" And even more importantly, do you remember your name? It's even hidden in the freaking word search. And I haven't even mentioned the other elephants in the room, like how very clearly the gravestones relate to the kids in the animatronic suits, and yeah, two of those names FNAF 2. And if you want to go really, really deep, like you know I love to do, you see Susie's font on her gravestone? Did you know it's the same font that's used to introduce each night of FNAF 4? That's something that no one else online has noticed, and if fonts are important, which remember, they probably are, Scott doesn't do coincidences, so 4 gravestones with completely different fonts is probably important in some way. Notice how 2 of the gravestones share the same font, but it's not Jeremy and Fritz, which you would probably expect since they're the 2 who are mentioned in FNAF 2. There are so many freaking elephants in this room. It is a very crowded room. Remember what I said earlier about repeated kicks to the crotch? This is what I mean. That said, after months of thinking about this and more kicks to the crotch than I care to mention, I think I do have an idea of what might be going on here. And it all begins in probably the most confusing place of all. Midnight Motorist from FNAF 6. When I first spoke about this minigame, I said that the mustard man here was William Afton. And I could tell that a lot of you weren't too convinced in my conclusion, and I'll be honest, I wasn't 100% sure of it either, but it was the best I could do at the time. But now, I am 100% confident that that is who we're seeing here. You see, FNAF 6 is simultaneously the end of the story as well as the beginning. It's the end because, well, everyone burns to death. And it's the beginning because it's the origin story of the puppet. And as we know, everything begins with the puppet. She's the one that allows all the other animatronics to become possessed, as we see in FNAF 2, which makes the security puppet minigame pretty much the earliest event we ever see in any of these games. And we also know that it's William who killed Charlotte in that back alley. This is the origin story of the purple guy, complete with his purple car that we saw in FNAF 2 after all. But here's the detail I was missing before. If you brighten up the final screen of the security puppet minigame, you'll see tire chains left purple car driving away from his crime. This leads directly to the events of Midnight Motorist, which happens immediately after his murder. Here's how we know this for sure. Not only are you driving a purple car, and not only is it raining in minigames, so they're connected on both those fronts, but get this. When a user GB Orange found this section of the game, the source files is titled Later That Night, giving us the time connection we needed to know 100% that Orange Guy is William Afton. He kills Charlotte Wayne outside of Red Bears, drives away, and winds up back home later that night. Boom! Proven, locked and loaded. And looking at this minigame, knowing what we know now about Michael being the crying child, we know that the couch potato here is his older brother. Mr. Foxy Mask, let me shove my brother into an animatronic mouth and get him killed, speaking in his signature gray text, who apparently no longer has a name, which leaves Michael as the one who escaped to that place again. That is who William is mad at, with that place being obviously none other than Freddy's. And from there, a lot of pieces start to fit together. William's frustration with Michael escaping explains why we see him have surveillance cameras all over his house and sister location. It's not an experiment or anything. He is literally keeping tabs on the boy who keeps running away. It also explains why we see Michael, the crying child, locked in his room throughout FNAF 4. William himself says at the end of Midnight Motorist that Michael will be sorry when he gets back. And he is, as William constantly locks him in his room, making him unable to escape anymore. All of this might even explain the rationale for the nightmare animatronics. William built them, or else used his mind-altering sound disc that first appeared in the book that we talked about in the previous theory, to scare Michael so that he would stop wanting to go to the restaurant in the first place. That's why he's so scared of the place when we see him in FNAF 4. I'm literally in the recording closet right now. Suddenly things start to fit together in a weird way. I'm just going to throw this in here right as it happens. I'll need to look into this later, probably a future theory, but let's just break it down. Orange Guy is William, right? And he's turned away at the front door of Junior's. It's like, why is this a minigame? Well, could it be because of the investigation into the missing children's incident? Remember what Phone Guy said from FNAF 2?
From what I understand, the buildings are on lockdown. No one is allowed in their house, especially concerning any previous employees.
Afton is rejected at the front door of the building because of the lockdown, and because he's a previous employee. It makes the timeline a bit messy, and I'll have to go back and rework it, but something about this feels right. William Afton was fired from his job, goes back to juniors, but the building is under investigation because of the missing children's incident. William, being a former employee, is turned away at the door. He's not allowed in. It's nothing like that. It's Freddy Fazbear's Jr. or something, the second location, the FNAF 2 location. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there because it just occurred to me as I was writing this thing. I haven't had time to fully flesh it out and work it into the script, but I thought it was important enough to include, break the flow of things. Regardless, it gives us something else to chew on. Now back to the actual episode as I read. Okay, I continue to avoid the obvious question here. Michael's death and apparent rebirth. If I'm being honest, it's because I don't really have a fully fleshed out explanation for it. It's less of a theory and more of a hypothesis, really. So would you be so kind as to Freddy Fazbear with me as I go through what I think might be happening here? We know that Michael Afton is special, right? I mean, we see him get scooped, become a pile of rotten flesh, and yet he is still able to survive. In short, when we see him in Sister Location, he's not altogether human. Now, hold on to that idea for a second. While we're on the topic of Sister Location, let's look at The Immortal and the Restless, the super random soap opera from the game with a name that, now that I say it aloud in context, actually starts to make a little bit more sense. It stars Vlad, an immortal vampire who's dressed in purple, who starts every episode saying,
"Clara, I tell you, the baby isn't mine."
And in FNAF, we have William Afton, a man who's apparently immortal enough to survive a spring lock failure, who, like a vampire, sucks the remnant out of children and who knows, maybe survives on it, and is represented by the color purple. It's actually a lot of similarities. So could the repeated lines of
"Not my baby, the baby isn't mine, the baby isn't mine"
actually relate to William's relationship with Michael? What if Michael isn't actually William's son? It seems like it would be a logical leap, but we know for a fact that Michael's real name isn't Michael. Remember what the logbook said. Do you remember your name? Well, of course he does, logbook. He wrote it on the front cover, Mike, unless, of course, that's not his real name. So you got all those details? Good, because here's where all this random observation comes together. In the novels, one of the big overarching storylines is that the main character, Charlotte, had a twin who was kidnapped by Springtrap when she was younger. At the end of the second book, it's revealed that the twin wasn't actually kidnapped, it was her, which seems to imply that Charlotte and her twin were one and the same, or were somehow interchangeable. Then, in the final pages, Charlotte dies from a spring lock failure, only to miraculously come back to life unscathed in the next few days as if nothing had ever happened. There are also a lot of clues sprinkled throughout the book that William Afton has the ability to create hyper-realistic humanoid robots. I even mentioned that briefly during a past FNAF theory. I haven't even gotten to how I think the main character of the book series is probably a robot, but again, those are all theories for other days. Long story short, everything seems to point to Charlotte in the books being an AI. Maybe at one point she was a person, but she died or was kidnapped at an early age, and ever since, her personality has been programmed into a computer where she's now able to be replicated over and over again into a super advanced robot that's somehow now able to grow and develop. I didn't write the books, okay? Now, obviously, the two are vastly different canons, but the games and books do relate in a lot of ways. And we know in the games from William's daughter Elizabeth that full-on personalities of individuals can get programmed into AI. Elizabeth goes on to possess the spirit of baby. So what if Michael is just one of those? Sure, he was killed in the bite of 83, but when William promised to put him back together, it meant literally put him back together. Find a way to piece him back together using some combination of robotics expertise and miracle soul juice remnant. That's how Michael dies in FNAF 4, but somehow comes back to life in later games. It's how he's able to get scooped, get a bunch of robot spaghetti shoved into him, and then still survive when the robot spaghetti gets puked out of him. It's why he would no longer be able to remember his original name. And after he realizes the truth about what he actually is, that he's no longer human, he decides to end it all in the inferno of FNAF 6, after having done his best to set the souls of his former friends free. Oh boy, that is a lot. And between all these reveals and last week's code, there is a ton for us theorists to start chewing on. But now you get an idea of why I've been beating myself up for months trying to put this whole thing together. It upends mostly everything that we thought we knew about the franchise. Sure, it answers some of our questions like Midnight Motorist and a bit more about FNAF 4, but it opens the door to a lot of new avenues to explore. Anyway, the final book in the FNAF trilogy, The Fourth Closet, is coming out soon. I know a bunch of it leaked online already, but I'm trying to stay blind to it so as not to spoil anything in my theories. And even more exciting, Scott is releasing Ultimate Custom Night soon. So between those two, I am certain that there'll be more clues on the way, helping us come to a final conclusion to all of this.
We put you back together, then take you apart all over again.
So until then, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. With some game hypothesis thrown in there for good measure. Thanks for watching. By the way, if you like the FNAF theories and you haven't checked out our theories on Petscop, well then what are you waiting for? Check it out. Petscop is a lot like the new FNAF, except even more obscure and even more creepy, but you can't play the game, unfortunately. So anyway, that theory's to the left. And if you have any hopes of ever achieving a final answer as to the lore of this franchise, you know what you're gonna have to do, and that is jump scare that subscribe button. You've got 5 seconds to do it before the video ends. 5, 4, 3... Internet, welcome to Game Theory, the show that usually tries to encourage you to look at the world with both your mind and your eyes wide open. But not today, because I'm talking about Close Your Eyes. Hands down the scariest, or if not the scariest, the most WTF indie game I've played in 2018. Now, I've suffered through a lot of scary horror games that make you want to close your eyes, but this is actually the first one I've played where closing your eyes is an actual game. In fact, the first thing that you see when loading the game is an orientation welcoming you to the View Laboratory in the year 2057, teaching you how to blink. You learn to blink, you learn to walk, and then this happens. On the ceiling, we're presented with a very clear mystery, a code written in reverse Wingdings 3. I need to know what happened. And that's just the first few minutes of the game. It doesn't get much less disturbing from there, forcing you through fields of human hands. Yes, please. Take me on your magic journey. Burning hellscapes and cities made from purple alien tongues. What is this game? Yeah. And if that wasn't strange and creepy enough, all the while you're having to fight against these guys.
It's the puppet now.
Oh, this is just like waiting for a theory, isn't it? There's a story here. A really interesting story to boot, but it's hidden under layers upon layers of hallucinations, cryptic dialogue, disturbing visuals, and heavy symbolism. So today, I want to make sense out of the story of Close Your Eyes, or at least piece together the story beyond drugs, not even once. Now, a lot of the game's story is actually told to us in the game's opening minutes, but it's not until you play through the whole thing that any of this makes sense. As part of the tutorial, we see a chart for a test subject, Cecily Newman, part of the View program. Sex NA, blood type NA, muscle status, insufficient data, age 4 hours, height 5'6", and weight 1,437 pounds? That is one heavy androgynous baby. The way the game presents this almost makes it sound like Cecily is a monster. But the first time that we get a game over, things start to make a little bit more sense. That body that we see on the floor during the game over screen isn't a human body. Cecily Newman is a robot. A robot with no sex, blood type, an age of only 4 hours, and a weight of 1,434 pounds. So that explains mostly everything that we see on the chart, but then what does husk status mean? In the opening sections of the game, we get the warning that husks can kill, and that if you're attacked by a husk, then you should cover your eyes. Hence the gameplay that helps close your eyes. But it's not until halfway through the game that we're able to piece together what these Stretch Armstrong rejects want and how they're related to us. According to this diagram, the View program designed a procedure called cognitive transfer, a process that takes a human and then splits them into two parts. Their consciousness is saved into the entity's yielded essence storage, eyes for short, which is then installed into robot bodies like Cecily's. It's that classic sci-fi trope of a mind upload, a way to live forever. So then what happens to the other half of the human? The discarded human body? Well, as we find out, the discarded human bodies, the husks, are then sent to Sector A2325 for testing and mutilation. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the husks that we encounter throughout the game aren't monsters at all. They're not even evil. They're just the abandoned remnants of people. Remnants that want to reunite with the lost part of their consciousness by hunting down the host robots and taking the eyes back. In fact, we're told that the husks were purposely made to look scary so that the humans would reject them. Quote, they made us deform and so everyone would fear us. It's also clear that View's program was controversial, as we see protest signs claiming that cognitive transfer is murder and that this whole thing is one big hoax. That leads to the question, what exactly is View? Is it a mega corporation? Is it a secret government program? The game doesn't really tell us directly, but we do get hints. We find out that View stands for Vitality and Identity Extraction, WWV, like what? World War V? It's ridiculous if that's what it appears to be. Remember, the game is set in the year 2057, and in one of the 4 possible endings of the game, the Husk ending, you attempt to free the Husks from the facility, but as soon as you throw the gates open, you're met with this apocalyptic wasteland, ravaged by war. That might be part of the reason View wanted to develop a cognitive transfer program to begin with. If you can take your country's people and implant their consciousnesses inside robot bodies with no need for food or water, it would be possible for people to hide underground indefinitely to wait out the nuclear fallout. Now, there's still one major character in the story that I haven't talked about, that dress-wearing robot that you see at the start of the game. I'm gonna call her the Witch. While the cognitive transfer program seems to separate human test subjects into 2 groups, the mutilated husks and the host robots, the Witch seems to straddle a line between both those groups. She has a robotic body, and yet she seems to speak as one of the husks, or at least speaks for them. Like when she says, they made us deform, so everyone would fear us. In one sequence, we see her commanding them like an army, and yet she seems to be on our side. Throughout the game, closing your eyes reveals clues sprinkled throughout the environment. Those clues are coming from her. As she says, every time you close your eyes, I send these messages to help you.
Oh, that's nice.
So what, or more accurately, who is the Witch? During one of the more memorable and trickier sequences of the game, we follow a path for a few hands. Human hands wearing a crown. The hands that must have had prior to their mutilation, before seeing the Witch hovering over a lake. In order to create a path to the Witch, the player must retrieve 2 glowing, flaming essences from 2 statues. The statue on the right has the appearance of one of the host robots, like the body the player inhabits at the beginning of the game. The statue on the left has a face that resembles the Witch's face. By retrieving and uniting these 2 essences, the player opens up the path. These 2 statues and the flames that the player retrieves from each of them suggests the idea that an essence has been split across 2 bodies, the Witch's body and a host robot body. It's also a small detail that's easy to overlook, but each one possesses one of the green glowing eyes. One holds the right eye and the other holds the left eye. This split essence imagery starts to make even more sense when you consider it in the context of one of the game's endings, the Recollection ending. In this ending, as the facility is on the verge of exploding, the player comes across the Witch, trapped underneath some falling debris. By choosing this ending, you choose to give the Witch your eyes. We can actually confirm that this is what's happening because we briefly catch a glimpse of an abandoned husk near the Witch. At this point in the game, we've been captured by a husk and our eyes have been stolen. By giving the Witch our eyes, the player implants their consciousness into her. We, as the Witch, then choose to end our life by jumping into the abyss to escape the exploding facility. The game ends with the uplifting message of, you open your eyes. What's interesting is that this ending is called the Recollection ending. Recollection suggests the idea of being reunited with your old memories, not just discovering something new. So what is being called this ending? Well, it's simply the fact that you are the Witch. Or to be more accurate, you're carrying part of the Witch's consciousness. That's why the subtitle to this ending is, You Opened Your Eyes. You remembered who you once were. Cecily Newman is the true Witch. This is further supported by a lot of easy details throughout the survives. Near the end of the game, she says, "Attack so high," which suggests that her consciousness has been split into two halves that she's trying to reunite. Half lies with the witch, and the other half lies with the player as the witch tries to guide him through a trail of breadcrumbs so she can be reunited with her other eye. This also explains the imagery we saw earlier in the dream sequence, with one host robot statue and one witch statue, each containing half of a fiery essence. And when they're reunited, a fiery-eyed husk rises out of the water, a completed being. But the secret connection between us and the witch is held in the very opening moments of the game. See how there's a single husk here with the View-branded witch hovering over top of it? As we approach, the program glitches out and binary code flashes up. If you translate that binary string into regular text, it reads, "I can't see." Basically, the powers that be don't want us to face the truth. Our eyes were ripped out, and out of that, you created the witch. As soon as we start to be exposed to that truth, it causes the system to collapse. We also see this imagery of a lone husk kneeling on the ground appear at another moment in the game, right before the recollection ending, where we physically must touch the lone husk surrounded by the devastated, war-torn world to move the game forward. In the process, we've symbolically reconnected with ourselves before we cut back into the perspective now of the witch. We remember in a symbolic way what we once were and what we lost. The pain of those recollected memories is what causes us to jump off the platform. The horrible truth of this game is pretty evident. The world is ruined. Even if you manage to escape the View facility, there's nothing to escape to. Right at the game's ending, we get a glimpse of what the witch might have been trying to escape to. We see a vision of a meadow outside of the facility, but the game doesn't end there. We snap back into the reality of the View facility on the verge of destruction as a countdown timer displays the seconds remaining. We can rush to join the husks and free them from the facility, or we can reconnect with the witch, escaping down into the abyss. There is a third option, however. We can simply wait and watch the seconds tick down until at last the facility explodes, killing everyone, the husks, the witch, and us. The game calls this the best ending. Everyone closed their eyes. It seems like a grim note to end on, but in a way, it seems like it might truly be the best ending. The husks are able to find release in death rather than having their eyes open to the terrifying reality of a ruined apocalyptic world. Cecily the witch is able to rest forever, not having to recollect the painful memories of her own creation, and the player can rest, knowing that the horrors of the View facility have all been completely destroyed. Normally, we think about opening our eyes as a good thing. We want to seek knowledge and understanding. We want to be enlightened about the world around us. We want to know the truth. And the game starts itself with a very clear mystery. That code on the ceiling saying, "I need to know what happened to everyone." However, in Close Your Eyes, the best ending is the one in which everyone keeps their eyes closed. As the adage goes, ignorance is bliss. And while it's not an adage I often agree with, when it comes to a hopeless situation in a permanently ruined world, perhaps it is truly best to remain in the dark, blind to the misery and horrors that exist outside. Perhaps the best thing you can do in those sorts of situations is exactly what the game's title tells you. Close your eyes. And that is perhaps the scariest part of this whole game. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, and there's also a bunch of purple octopus creatures roaming around. It seems like they might be the owners or creators of View, as evidenced by them standing over the lone husk at the beginning of the game and wandering around the View facility right before the end of the game, but I'm not super clear on it. I think they might have been the things that started World War V, not 100% clear. Anyway, play the game, it is free and it's totally worth your time, and then tell me what you think in the comments below. By the way, if you're still in the mood for depressing indie game theories, well then open your eyes to the box on the left, where you'll watch the depressing truth behind the binding of Isaac. It's one of my all-time favorite theories. The box on the right, meanwhile, is what YouTube has determined is the best video for you based on your watch habits. I have no idea what it is, so if it's good, if it's bad, who knows? If you're so inclined, let me know what it is in the comments. I'd just be curious what YouTube thinks is the best for you. And in the meantime, I'll be back next week with someone who we haven't talked about in a while, and some science. I'll see you then. Welcome to the Alolan Islands, a land of beauty and adventure, where you can do all of your favorite island activities, battle intercontinental crime syndicates, enter wormholes to other dimensions, and collect stickers. Stickers? Weirdest vacation ever. basic game theory, where my Alolan form is a sunburnt tourist wearing board shorts and a fanny pack. Hey, it's time for a new Pokemon game, which means it's also time to dig into the ecological sciences to dissect the outlandish shenanigans Nintendo is trying to shove down our faces this time. And let me assure you, shenanigans are indeed afoot in the Alolan archipelago, because Game Freak has made decisions in the Pokemon Sun and Moon games that foretell a tragic future for all the cute, cuddly creatures that you've come to know and love in this series. Decisions that actually mean catastrophic things for the ecology of this tropical paradise. In short, there is a slow poison that was purposely placed in the lore of Pokemon Sun and Moon that practically guarantees that some of your all-time favorite Pokemon go extinct on these islands. You heard that right, Pokemon extinction, an unintended consequence of something that was intentionally programmed into these games. So what is this undiscovered threat, and which Pokemon are fated to face the genetic axe? That is what we're exposing today. With 7 generations of games and 805 total Pokemon before even including Mega Evolutions and Alola forms, it's easy to assume that the creators of these games are just mindlessly pumping out new designs to fill their roster of merchandisable plushies. And looking at some of the creative decisions they've made, you might be justified in thinking that. Honey, I can't find my keys! Oh, wait, here they are. Oh, never mind, it was just a cleft key, I'm still missing those keys. Other dishonorable mentions, Doug Trio with Crappy Weaves, Living Sandcastle, and Pedo Bear, who, if the design didn't already clue you in that they were phoning it in, has the name Beware. Beware. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Pokemon, the highest grossing media franchise in history. That's no exaggeration, by the way. Pokemon beats out Star Wars at number 2. Pokemon has earned $55 billion, topping Star Wars' total of $42 billion. And you have none other than quality designs like Beware to thank for that. Still looking for those keys, though. Anyway, although some may be a bit phoned in, others demonstrate that a lot of thought actually went into these designs and backstory. Case in point, the Alolan Pokedex entry for Donald Trump. I mean, Young Goose. You can tell the difference because Young Goose's hair looks more realistic. Anyway, the Pokedex tells us that despite the fact that Young Goose debuted in Generation 7 with the release of Sun and Moon, it's not actually native to the Alolan region. Young Goose did not originally live in Alola, but was imported from another region. According to Nintendo, Young Goose was introduced to the Alolan region to deal with the exploding Rattata population, which, as anyone who's ever played a Pokemon game before can tell you, Rattata overpopulation is a major problem. Seriously, kill them all, Young Goose, go get them! Unfortunately, introducing Young Goose to Alola didn't curb the Rattata's numbers so much as drive them into the urban areas of the islands and force them to become nocturnal, giving birth to the Alolan variant of Rattata, which is now a dark type. This in turn helps them to survive since Young Goose is active during the day. And how impressive is that? All of that thought just to explain a simple new Pokemon form. I mean, love or hate these games, you gotta hand it to the Pokemon team. They really thought that one through. Except they didn't think it through far enough, because in creating this backstory, Game Freak has actually put a death sentence on thousands of innocent Pokemon across the Alolan Islands. You see, Young Goose being imported into Alola means that it's technically an invasive species. In real life, an invasive species is any living organism, plant or animal, that's not native to an ecosystem. And while that may not sound all that threatening, approximately 42% of all endangered species on Earth are on those at-risk lists because of an invasive species that wound up in its part of the world. What happens is that this new invasive species doesn't have natural predators in that part of the world, and as a result, it can breed and spread quickly over the area. And since local plants and animals haven't had to deal with this creature before, they haven't evolved defense mechanisms against it. In just a short amount of time, the invasive species takes over, causing the underprepared local wildlife to go extinct. So yeah, good job, humans. You brought Young Goose to Alola to eat the Rattata. The Rattata adapted and found a way to survive, which means that now you're left with a huge population of Young Goose that have to eat something else and are gonna find it no matter what. After all, as the Pokedex entry says, with its sharp fangs, it will bite anything. It wanders around in a never-ending search for food, which means someone else is on the chopping block. And you know it's gonna be one of those cute little ones. But to find out exactly which mons get the munch, you need a trip to the history books. You see, the Young Goose Rattata fiasco actually has parallels to the real world. In the 1800s, Hawaii that Pokemon's Alola region happens to be based on, had problems with wild rats eating crops. The croppers' solution to this was to import mongooses to deal with Young Goose, mongoose. Hey, I said the Pokemon team did their homework. I didn't necessarily say they did plagiarize. Anyway, the mongoose situation might have worked out if it weren't for the fact that the mongoose, which hunt during the day, seldom crossed paths with the nocturnal rodents that were only active at night. Slow clap, humanity! Slow clap! Next time you think about importing a foreign species and sending them out, and potentially sending a bunch of animals into permanent extinction, maybe you should do your homework. And to this day, the mongoose continue to be a problem across most of the Hawaiian Islands. So what did the mongoose's target for food instead of rats? Anything. Small mammals, reptiles, insects, but most of all, the eggs and hatchlings of ground nesting birds and endangered sea turtles. In fact, on Puerto Rico, the mongoose has been the cause of at least 7 amphibian and reptile extinctions, and in Jamaica was the primary cause of the extinction of a lizard, a snake, 2 birds, and a species of rat. Now, I tracked all the areas young goose appear across Lola, and let me tell you, it's everywhere. Routes 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. You can already start to see how this invasive species is literally taking over the entirety of Mele Mele and Akala Islands. And that's not even the fullest extent of this. Its evolved form, Gumshoes, is everywhere late game, appearing on routes 10, 11, 15, 16, and 17, otherwise known as the entirety of Hula Hula Island. In short, this isn't just one island's wildlife at risk, it is the entire ecology of the whole Alolan archipelago that's about to suffer a massive multi-species extinction. Then, knowing that young goose prefer to hunt close to the ground and only during the day, I eliminated any Pokemon who were active at night or tended to stay in trees. Lastly, there were a ton of bug Pokemon across all of these routes, but bugs have huge populations, and it would be difficult for young goose to really damage the overall numbers of those populations, so I didn't really consider them at risk. In the end, I was left with powerless Pokemon that will, in the near future, be completely wiped out from the islands by the overpopulation of young goose and Gumshoes. Slowpoke, Lullaby, Delibird. Brace yourself, because here comes some real fan favorites. Igglybuff, Pichu. Every single one of these Pokemon species will be wiped clean from the Alolan Isles unless something is done to combat the young goose infestation. That is 6 entire species suddenly gone from an ecosystem. You can bet that's gonna throw some chains of chaos. Luckily, all of them are species that Pokemon, so no one species will truly be gone forever, or at least not gone forever solely because of a young goose, because that's not where the story ends. Young goose is only one of the invasive species brought onto Alola by humans. For example, according to the Dex entry in Pokemon Sun, Grimer was brought in to solve the problem with garbage and developed over time into this form. Besides the difference in color, look at those teeth. The Pokedex entry from Moon will tell us that those are actually, quote, lumps of toxins. If one falls off, lethal poisons leak out. So the second species inserted onto these islands by humans just so happens to contain lethal poisons. And since Grimers are specifically used to treat wastewater, you can bet that those toxic crystals are gonna do a lot of damage to the sea life around Hau'oli City and the Cape of Hula Hula Island. Then there's Makuhita, also brought into the region by humans. Since these guys train themselves by slamming their bodies into trees, the plant life around Route 2 is absolutely gonna suffer under these slams. That in turn affects the nesting sites for birds found there like Spearow. And lastly, perhaps the single biggest threat to the islands, Meowth. Yet again, the Pokedex tells us this Pokemon was not originally found in Alola. Human actions caused a surge in their numbers, and they went feral. Honestly, it's another story ripped straight from Hawaii, where feral cats have established populations of all 8 main Hawaiian islands. In fact, wild cats are listed among the most harmful invasive species globally by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, contributing to the extinction of 33 species. Each year, wild cats kill approximately 2.4 million birds. The outpatient of Alola is even more likely that bird Pokemon start diminishing in number, absolutely putting piggyback on the menu, and shares around with young, basically ensuring the disappearance of Pichu. Huh, way to treat your series mascot there, Pokemon. Seems like even Game Freak is sick of Pichu at this point. In short, the Alolan ecosystem is just flat out screwed. We already know that there's a high probability that 6 species will fall suffer similar fates that non-native Grimers, Makuhitas, and Meowths. They used to be that the phrase "gotta catch 'em all" was just to fill out the Pokedex. But in Alola, the phrase takes on a whole new meaning. Gotta catch 'em all the individual members of the invasive species, because if you don't, the ecosystem of these islands will be permanently ruined. Who knew that game about cuddly creatures would continue to be so incredibly depressing? But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. theory. Thanks for watching. You know what's not going extinct anytime soon? Quality Pokemon theories. Hit that subscribe button to make sure that you catch them all. And if you want to learn more about how natural selection has affected the designs of individual Pokemon species across these series of games, well then click the box to the right. Now if you'll excuse me, I think Hello Neighbor is coming out soon. Hey, have you seen the first episode of my brand new show, Deadlock, yet? Think video game debates on steroids. Click this annotation or the link in the description to check it out. I'll link to it at the end of the video, too. Early response has been good, so I think you're gonna like what you see. Warning, this video will most likely contain a comment section full of YouTube commenters aggressively arguing over the merits of organized religion. Viewers of this video, you're good to go. But readers who dare to go below the fold, your discretion is advised. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory. Cue the John Williams, cause we're getting indie up in here. The Binding of Isaac. Man, this game is depressing, disturbing, dark, and even some adjectives that don't start with D, like baffling, obtuse, just plain weird. For those of you not familiar with it, The Binding of Isaac was the 2011 follow-up to Super Meat Boy, made by artist and game designer Edmund McMillan. It was a huge success on Steam, so last year they touched it up and expanded it into The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. Honestly, it's a fantastic top-down roguelike tribute to the original Legend of Zelda, so you know the gameplay is gonna be good. But where this game really makes its mark is in its story. This game comes from the Five Nights at Freddy's school of storytelling. Throw some crazy, disturbing stuff against a wall, drop some hints that there's a meaning behind madness, and let the theorists of the world sort it out. And that's exactly what we intend to do. So the game begins with an opening narration spoken over top of some drawings. It tells the tale of Isaac and his mother. We're told that they live alone on a hill. Isaac draws while his mother watches Christian TV programs, probably a mix of EWTN and the 700 Club. Anyway, we're told that mom starts to hear a voice from above, presumably God, telling her that Isaac is unclean. The comic then shows that she takes away his clothes, toys, and drawings, then locks him away in his room. The voice congratulates the mother for her work, but then demands that she make a sacrifice of Isaac to prove her loyalty. She enters the room carrying a large kitchen knife, but Isaac escapes through a trap door hidden under the rug and is plunged into a world where he must use his tears as a weapon against demons, bugs, anthropomorphized poop, and his mother's own womb. Yeah, indie games, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and I should probably mention that there are 16 endings. Dear Di.
And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace and perhaps more waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend.
Jeez, Scott. I know we didn't get along all the time, but condemning me to hell seems a bit extreme. Seriously though, can we turn on some air conditioning here or something? It's getting a bit warm in here. Oh wait, it is me because I'm wearing my snuggly new Game Theory merch. And you too can be getting hotter than a serial killer in a burning death trap because starting right now, new merch is available via the link in the description. Do you know the way to good fashion? Well, I will show you the way because not only do we have this nifty hoodie with embroidered patches that make you feel like you're wearing a warm, stylish blanket, we also have new shirts with a stunning slimming design so you can look and feel great even after stuffing your face with budget pizza from a defunct children's restaurant. And they wash great, especially when you're using Tide Pods, go figure. It's gonna be spring soon and spring tends to get kinda chilly, but don't worry cause I got you covered with another item that I think's the bomb. a bomber jacket, complete with game theory lining so that you too can pull a mat pad and walk around in jackets all year long, even when it's too hot to be doing so. Then for all those who want to secretly show off their theorist pride, we got socks! Because honestly, people who wear fun, colorful, nerdy socks are like my favorite people in the world. I have 20 pairs of nerdy socks ranging from like Deadpool to Rick and Morty, and now game theory's in the collection, and you could add it to your collection too. And finally, we have men's and women's underwear, perfect for your top and your bottom. Call it Game Theory Intimates. It's a new year, get yourself some new gear. Plus, every order comes with a special Winter 2018 pin, as well as a chance to win something that is really special. Only 100 orders will come packaged with this, a special limited edition Golden Fury coin. Not only is it just super cool to get a real gold coin, it also may serve as your ticket to a very special event happening later this year. It's basically like Willy Wonka and his golden tickets, except for gamers and less caloric. But I have to warn you, supplies of everything are super limited. We know that things took way too long last time to get to you, so we've partnered with a new team to ensure that you get your orders faster and with way better customer service. Unlike last time, everything is already printed, waiting in boxers and eager to find a new home in your arms, or on your stanky feet, or covering your unmentionables. Shipping is international, sizes are like what you'd get in the store, and again, to ensure that you get stuff fast, this is all super limited edition prints. Once it is gone for good. So make sure you place your orders now, because who knows what'll be available a week from now. And once it arrives, send us a picture of you in the merch. Except for the underwear, I don't want to get arrested. Anyway, enough shilling. Let's talk about the end of this channel's most popular franchise. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where let's just take a collective moment and get this all out of the way. Say it with me now. Another FNAF video. You said the last one was gonna be your last. Yeah, I know, but I also said this. Now don't get mad at me when the new game comes out in a few weeks and another theory about it. And true enough to form, that's exactly what happened. I released my final two-parter theory on the subject, and exactly 1 month later, FNAF 6, disguised under the fan-game-esque name of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, gets released. Now, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if you all thought that Scott and I were the same person. Come to think of it, you have never seen us in the same room together at the same time. Anyway, the game came out over 2 months ago, and ever since I've had countless people asking me for the theory. Over 10 people in the last week alone stopped me on the street and asked for a FNAF episode. And that's not even mentioning all the emails I've gotten in that time. So for Ben, Steven, Phil, Cassie, Matt, Lucas, Sarah, Alex, Matt number 2, and NBA Rookie of last year, Carl Anthony Towns, it's no joke actually, as well as everyone who has sent in something requesting an episode on FNAF, this one, and potentially one squeeze between this one and the next theory, and maybe even a third one down the line at some point, those are all for you. Now, FNAF 6 was a very different game from many of the ones that before, not because it had a weird roller coaster type-esque metagame connecting all the security camera maintenance you've come to know and tolerate from this series, but because it's much more exclusive. This game has a lot of talking, accompanied by clear visual storytelling to reinforce what you're hearing, meaning that a lot of the major plot points of this game are fairly easy to understand, which has got to be like a first for the entirety of this franchise. FNAF 6 is filled with a sense of finality. It's clearly meant to tie up all the loose ends and serve as the last game of the series. Or, let me be clear, the last part of the series covering what I'm going to call the Purple Guy saga. It's like Dragon Ball Z up in here. A saga which begins with a series of murders that result in animatronics coming to life, continues with the Afton family meeting with a series of terrible fates, and ends with the spirits of everyone involved getting closure one way. Because this game feels much more obvious in its story, many online theorists have chosen to focus on the major story beats, actively ignoring the game's more unusual points, the wrinkles that don't quite fit in here. But it's in those wrinkles that we find answers to some of the longest-held questions of the franchise, clues that we need to finally put the whole puzzle together. So stick with me and prepare to get a little wrinkly like a toe left in the bathtub for too long, because while today is certainly a theory, or rather multiple theories all in one episode, it's also me trying to open the door to you guys, equipping you with information necessary to discuss the final points lingering around the edge of this mysterious franchise, finally closing the book on the Purple Guy saga. Now, before I get to the deep lore here, let me quickly run through the major reveals in this game, just to make sure that we're all outstanding. In the aftermath of FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame, the spirits of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy all put to rest, which left only the lingering threads of Springtrap with William Afton inside, Ennard with Baby inside, Michael Afton, I'm a living corpse who used to have robot tentacles inside, and the puppet with nothing inside. Prior to the release of this game, Scott's two websites, scottgames.com and FNAFworld.com, were talking to each other in their source code. A conversation which showed Baby and Ennard getting into a fight, and Baby basically getting voted out of the tribe, which is why in this new game the two are once again separate entities. Ennard in this game assumes the form of Molten Freddy, which, adding in this game's other new edition of Rockstar Freddy, brings the total number of different Freddy forms across the entire series to 12. 12 different Freddys alone. And you'll wonder why this game is confusing to talk about. Baby, meanwhile, becomes Scrap Baby, with a lobster claw and roller skates because Scott was like, whee, it's my final game, I can make the designs whatever the hell I want to. Springtrap now has a cleft chin, and heck, why not? There's a weird black bear named Lefty, because why the heck not throw a 13th bear onto the pile? Throughout the game, you're not only tasked with handling the best characters ever, featuring such standouts as #1 Great and Mr. Uggs, but every night you'll find one of your old friends out that back alley, and it's your task for paragraph 4 of your employment contract to salvage that animatronic, bring them into your establishment.
If you are playing this tape, that means that not only have you been checking outside at the end of every shift, as you were instructed to do, but also that you have found something that meets the criteria of your special obligations under paragraph 4.
Fast forward a couple nights to the true ending of the game, where the pizzeria was just a trap made to lure the stray animatronics into the same place at the same time, so that they and the horrors of Freddy Fazbear's could be finished off once and for all in a final blaze of glory, even though that technically happened once before in FNAF 3 and Springtrap survived. But hey, who's counting? Me, but, you know, whatever. And who of all people set up this trap? What is the identity of this mysterious set man? Well, the first clue we get is actually in the closing monologue.
Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend.
It's an old friend of William Afton's, Henry, no last name given. And if that lack of a last name sounds familiar, well, it should. I mentioned this guy a lot during that dark period where I used information from the books for my sister location theories. In the book series, he's the animatronic genius who partnered with William to create the Freddy mods. And this isn't only speculation. One of the secret endings, the Insanity ending, proves that this is Henry. If during the game you buy this freak show egg creature for way too much money, it causes your computer's power button to switch from green to blue. If you then hold the power button like you're starting the computer in safe mode, it causes a hidden recording to play. An audio tape that happens to be HRY. But the Insanity ending shows us even more than just a light connection back to the novels. As Henry talks about his regret over after helping William create the animatronics and his plan to lure everyone together to finish this off once and for all, we're shown a series of secret blueprints. Most of them provide a bit more detail into how this wacky world works. We're shown that Afton's Scooper from Sister Location functions by infusing things with, for lack of a better term, soul energy, what Afton calls remnant. This is how Michael was able to survive as a purple corpse post his Ennard enema. We also see that Molten Freddy, formerly Ennard, still contains the souls of Ballora, Funtime Freddy, and Funtime Foxy, and that our mission under paragraph 4 is to specifically collect and destroy the remnant once and for all. Remnant is destroyed by overheating, hence the fire at the end. We even learned the detail that literally no one was asking for: how to simulate children. The RASC, or Remote Activated Simulated C, I'm assuming stands for child, simulates body temperatures of 98.6 degrees and then runs around making child noises. Hence how you're able to lure all the murderous animatronics around in this game, and also probably FNAF 3. But what's most surprising is Lefty, that oddball black bear that just showed up in this game. A bear that, according to its acronym, is programmed to lure something by emitting a bracelet code and then encapsulated with a combination of lullabies and controlled shocks. A bear suit that was made by Henry that has the sole purpose of capturing none other than the puppet. You can even tell it's already accomplished its goal if you look closely at this rare screen you sometimes get when you boot up the game. The signature striped arm of the puppet showing but it doesn't stop there. If you buy and then play the security puppet minigame 3 times over the course of your week in the restaurant, you see a child trapped outside the pizzeria wearing a bracelet. up with exactly what we hear in the game's true ending.
My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms.
Henry's daughter, the first victim. Puppets, one who gave life to everyone that came after her and gave peace to their souls in FNAF 3. Finally confirmed after I'd been predicting it for 3 years since the release of FNAF 2. So, there you have it. Henry from the books is now canon in the games. His daughter is the puppet trapped inside Lefty. Everyone, including Michael, dies in the FNAF 6 fire, and baby's name is established as Elizabeth in Henry's closing monologue. It's all pretty cut and dry. And if you want to get really deep, the images on the walls in the alley are actually blurry contrasts. You can tell based on the bullet points and oddly short paragraphs, which I have seen more than enough time to identify at a glance. And all of that relates back to that theme of what is paragraph 4, which has been Scott's calling card for this game. The imagery of the ventriloquist and clowning associated with Halloween isn't using some new game like a lot of people have been assuming, but rather it's just a creation of the Afton family. William is the ventriloquist, the dummy, who looks exactly like him, represents Michael Afton, who, as we know, looks just like his father, just a smaller version of him, and has to parrot back a lot of what his father tells him to do. Elizabeth, aka Baby, is the clown, for fairly obvious reasons, and the bear on the leash is just Crying Child, a child who is trapped and held back by his family, who ultimately dies in the hands of Red Bear. FNAF 6 even offers explanations for the inappropriate costumes that were mentioned by the phone guy calls from FNAF 3. Yeah, you remember those?
No replacements arrived, so we expected to wear the temporary costumes provided to you. Keep in mind that they were found on very short notice, so questions about appropriateness/relevance should be deflected.
They're the mediocre melodies crew from this game, which also happen to match up perfectly to the other masks that you see during FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame. The green one is Happy Frog, the pink one is Pig Patch, Mr. Hippo is purple, some blue one for some reason, and then Orville the elephant is the orange one with the long nose. But for as much as FNAF 6 explains, and it explains a lot pretty explicitly, it leaves open 3 huge questions. 3 questions that no one has been able to answer for the past 2 months until now. I'm pretty confident that I can answer those questions. For the third one, I'm going to need your help. Now, you don't need too much to get that true ending. You just salvage all the animatronics and survive all night. Basic mapping 101. But there's another layer to this game, an ending that goes one step beyond just the big story. The Lord ending, where things to unlock, you have to play 3 specific minigames through completion: Security Puppet, Broody Maze, and Midnight Motorist. Security Puppet was easy to explain. The others, though, start to come up. In Broody Maze, the game starts to become more and more stages. By the end of the 3rd stage, collectibles transform into slaughtered dogs very loud. Your on-screen avatar is twinkling bloody footprints. The blonde-haired, white girl reflected in the arcade screams, crying. And for good reason, since standing behind her is none other than the purple guy, dressed in his golden vest. Now, this one's confused a lot of online theorists, but in my opinion, requires some process of elimination to solve. FNAF 6 is all about tying up loose ends, right? And at this point, the puppets set the souls of FNAF's core 4 of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica, as well as Golden Freddy free in the Happiest Day minigame. Baby, the sister location crew, Springtrap, and the puppet are all taken care of by Henry in the true ending of FNAF 6, and the 3 toy animatronics from FNAF 2, which do seem to legitimately be tied to a security database, are scrapped at the end of their game. So who or what does that leave? Mangle. But I'm not saying that the girl is Mangle, I'm telling you it's her dog. Mangle is William Afton's first successful experiment with a remnant, dog remnant. Which, now that I say it out loud, sounds a lot more like dog duty than miracle soul formula, but let me explain. We obviously see that the girl's crying, but it's not because she's scared. We actually see that Will Trapp is able to have a normal conversation with her, saying, "He's not dead, he's still alive, follow me." She's crying because her dog died, as represented on the screen. And that's the he that William's referencing here. Your dog is not dead, he is still alive. And we have proof that William isn't lying about this either. It's an odd detail that I've never talked about, which is pretty incredible that after so many of these darn videos, I'm still pulling out random factoids to piece into this puzzle. But in the Save Them minigame from way back in FNAF 2, you're in a building filled with 5 dead kids and Purple Guy. All the other animatronics are stationary except for one, Mangle. Alive and well, and unlike every other animatronic in the entire series, roaming around on all 4s. Even though Mangle technically walks around on 3 legs, but you get the point. A design decision so important that we see Scott keep it in Mangle's quest from FNAF 3 as well. Mangle is alive without the puppet giving him gifts or giving him life. So how is the Mangle animatronic moving in this moment? William, experimenting with animals and Remnant. And as we see in the Fruity Maze, William uses the fact that the dog is still alive to lure this girl to her death, allowing her to be reunited with her dog forever. For more proof, notice that the dead dog in the Fruity Maze minigame is actually missing an eye, a detail that we see a chair with Mangle. Additionally, you ever notice how Mangle is the only animatronic that actually doesn't possess any human-like noises? The core 4 all feature moaning, sighs, or laughs at various points throughout the series. Laura, Baby, Springtrap, and the Fun Times all talk. Even the Nightmare animatronics breathe, which is a whole nother can of worms I'm not opening up today, but Mangle just has garbled radio noises. Almost like its cognitive functioning is much less than all the other possessed creatures in the series. So that's Fruity Maze, but then comes the biggie. Perhaps the most vague and bizarre moments from FNAF 6 come from the hidden Easter eggs in the final Lorekeeper minigame, Midnight Motorist. It starts simple enough, a top-down racer game, but glitch through an opening in the bottom of the track, and suddenly you're on a rainy drive through a rural tree-filled landscape, visiting a bar named Junior's, and eventually making your way to a lonely house hidden deep in the woods. Out pops the driver, and he's orange? Thanks, Scott. We finally solved the identity of Purple Guy, and you just had to throw in one final monochromatic mystery man. Orange Guy? I like to call him Mustard Man. He charges into the house and rages at the fact that someone, presumably his son, has locked himself in his room. He goes around the back to find a way in, only to discover that the window is broken with a set of footprints and some bear tracks, leading to, quote, that place again. And that's it. The minigame abruptly ends there. No matter how many times you replay this game, it's always the same. It's weird, it's disturbing, and most of all, it's frustrating, since it seems to introduce all new characters in a game that's mostly about bringing every other character's story to a close. But are these truly new faces? No. Look first at the house. A lone house in a clearing surrounded by trees. Believe it or not, but we've actually seen this house before on the title screen to FNAF 4. A lone house in a clearing surrounded by trees. Not only that, but both houses have 2 stories. Even the roofs look roughly the same. But now think back to a quote that I mentioned last episode about how Scott writes these stories. Quote, there have been other times, however, when my original intentions didn't come across clearly. In those instances, I make a point to clarify in the next game. FNAF 6 is all about clarifying, explaining Remnant, explaining the scooper, the puppet, and what's our connective tissue in this minigame? Someone sitting in a living room watching TV. And what did we see at the end of every night of Sister Location? Michael Afton going home after his shift to watch TV. That slouchy figure there may look like a balding grandma, but it's good old Mike Casual Bongos Afton himself binging on his Immortal and the Restless. And I can further prove it via his text. Scott has always roughly adhered to the convention of dialogue, color, and his final game is no exception to this rule. Green bouncer dude talks in green, orange guy talks in orange, and Michael Afton on the couch talks in gray, exactly like he did when he was laughing at his blind brother at 4. It's definitely a slightly different shade, but he's also the only one in the entirety of this series to speak gray lettering. They also both wear gray shirts. Truly fashionable to match their t-shirt and their font color. Couple all of that with him watching TV, the FNAF 4 title screen house, which always has a TV, be in it, and the character being protective over some him, say a younger brother, and you have yourself the perfect portrait of the Afton family, which would make Orange Guy Purple Guy, otherwise known as William Afton. He's even got a signature purple card, the same one that we saw him use in the FNAF 2 Take Cake minigame before he killed off Henry's daughter. But why? Why would Scott choose to make William Afton some color other than purple for like the first time ever in the final game in the series? The answer is actually kind of mundane, because by this point in the series, there are two different purple guys, William and his son. It would have been confusing from a storytelling standpoint. Though, I gotta say, Scott, it's not that much better, since now you're swapping in a whole new color for a character who's been represented by another color the whole time. It's a bit confusing. Anyway, what does all of this mean? Why, out of all things, did Scott choose to show us this random scene? What does it explain about the story through the battle between an orange William Afton and a runaway child? All of that in just a few days. This video is really long already. Plus, in a game that tries to answer everything from the entirety of the series, what was in the FNAF 4 box? Was it truly left forgotten forever? Is Scott waiting to reveal its contents in a future game? Make sure you take a bite out of that subscribe button to find out those final answers, as well as the solution to perhaps the biggest question of them all, the Lore Keeper's final screen. After unlocking all of these glitched minigames, Scott presents us with a series of gravestones filled with names. Some familiar, and some not so much. So, who are they? What do they reveal about the story? And how can you help me to solve Five Nights' last and most closely guarded secrets? All of that next time. In the meantime, though, remember, Game Theory merch is now available, but hopefully by this point it's selling out faster than a YouTuber with a Loot Crate sponsorship. So make sure you're getting your Theorist hoodie, shirt, jacket, socks, or underwear before they're gone by clicking the link you see on screen right now or in the top line of that description. The only thing scarier than FNAF? Missing out on these items, celebrating your Theorist pride. And remember, once this is all out of stock, the only merch left will be Logan and Jake Paul's. That, my friends, is a horror far scarier than deadly animatronics. Welcome to Game Theory in 2018, a show apparently dedicated entirely to virtual boxes, loot box psychology, loot boxes as gambling, the treatise on the science of fictional cardboard boxes. It's like box episodes are the new FNAF episodes for the channel. Gotta milk 'em dry. Next episode should be on, I don't know, the orange box or something. But in all seriousness, the box tetralogy reaches its dramatic finale today as I cover what is perhaps the most infamous digital box of the last decade, FNAF 4's Locked Chest. Now, last episode we started to explore the idea that FNAF 6 is all about tying up loose ends, that as the last game in the Purple Guy saga, Scott's goal was to give us the information necessary to close the book on this chapter in Freddy's story. But to me, as someone who has studied these games inside and out, if there was one question that needed to be answered in a final game, it wasn't how Michael Afton was able to become a living purple corpse through Remnant, or how Henry was able to create a device that could somehow simulate child body temperatures. I didn't even care so much about the timeline at this point. No, what I wanted answered was the biggest lingering mystery of FNAF. What was in the box? Rewind back to FNAF 4, the game that utterly wrecked everyone's understanding of this franchise. You beat the game, you get the iconic line of, "I will put you back together," and then boom! A literal mystery box that would make the likes of J.J. Abrams proud. Accompanied by the lines, "Perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now." But you know what? I never forgot. The fans never forgot. And I don't think Scott forgot either. So now, 2 years, 3 games, and 4 books later, I think I'm finally ready to break open the locks and reveal what was supposed to be in this thing versus what actually was in the thing. Because I have every reason to believe that the contents of the box have changed 3 separate ways. And then now, in the wake of FNAF 6, Scott has already shown us what is inside the box. Let me explain. FNAF 4 was released on July 23rd, 2015, and with it, a mysterious box ending. Exactly 1 month later, August 24th, Scott made a post referencing the Halloween update for the game, an update where he had considered opening the box. Quote, I wanted to post some information about the upcoming Halloween update. I started off a few months ago with several ideas in mind for what I wanted to release, ranging from DLC to a new game to opening the box, more on that later, but now I've been working steadily and have a pretty clear vision going forward. End quote. So, why wasn't the box included as a part of that update? Well, he explains it later in the post. Quote again. Now, I want to talk about what won't be included. The box. You know, when I released the first game over a year ago, I was amazed at how quickly everyone found every bit of lore and story. Then the same happened with Part 2. Then Part 3 came out, and once again the story was uncovered by the community. But then I released Part 4, and somehow no one, not a single person found the pieces. The story remains completely hidden. I guess most people assume that I filled the game with random Easter eggs this time. I didn't. What's in the box? It's the pieces put together. But the bigger question is, would the community accept it that way? The fact that the pieces have remained elusive this time strikes me as incredible and special. A fitting conclusion in some ways, and because of that, I've decided that maybe some things are best left forgotten forever. End quote. So clearly